Assalamu alaikum. Good morning to everyone. My name is Tehseen Ahmad Khan. I am from India and I represent UNCFACT, which is known as United Nations Center for Trade Facilitation and Electronic Business here. And may I request all the panelists to take your seat here, please. Friends, we begin with our business for the day. The panel is innovation and disruptive technologies at the heart of the single window of the future. To be very frank, I am very many times concerned about why it is disruptive technology, why it should not be advanced technologies. This is a debate when we do with all our colleagues across the globe that why it should be like this. But given an option, I would always call it as advanced technology rather than a disruptive technology. This debate will go on and on. But if you go deeper into it, you will find that many of the things which we'll be discussing here and many of the things which happen across the globe in this area, that you will find that you have been doing it in one way or the other. The nomenclature has changed. It has changed from what you have been doing from ages to disruptive technology or advanced technology. I give you an example that when I started my career, the first project of my life was doing a wagon movement and management system for a big company, which length and breadth you will say about 10 to 20 kilometers. It was a big steel plant where I had a project like this, where the activity was that it was a steel plant, then wagon comes loaded with raw material and it gets unloaded. It gets lost in the 15 kilometer, 20 kilometer side, and they'll end up paying damages to the railways for keeping their wagons beyond the point. So that's the time the technology which was available there, we did a system that for a huge mainframe system, we had drawn the terminal to different locations where unloading takes place, and from there somebody feeds the location of the terminal. That was the system that time, about 45 years back was the system. I would always say it was using Internet of Things for the purpose of doing it, but today's Internet of Things is different. And if I have to do the same project again, perhaps I will not draw a terminal from a mainframe to there, but different devices would facilitate this process of capturing data. So we have been doing the things. We have named it in some way other that time and another way this time. So such things are there and is happening. So let us see that whether we are discussing today the Internet of Things or blockchain, which facilitates this process, and that's the point of our discussion today. We have also had the privilege earlier, say electronic bill of lading. It used to be a paper document and used to be transacted in a paper environment, and the system was working fine. And an electronic document is a document which can be copied, which can be substituted, or if it is not properly secured or it's not properly handled. So then Ancitral made a very great effort to produce a model law on electronic transferable record, which really talks in terms of how transferability is respected and ensured in a secure environment when a document is transacted electronically. And we tried to perfect it, and it's a reality. In one of the panelists will talk about it more, and that is something which we are doing today, which was not heard a few years back. I had the privilege of talking to the AAEC on this subject, and they have shown interest that they would be part of this initiative, which is there at the international arena. Similarly, the blockchain, we have been doing a lot of things. If you say blockchain, which is driven by a public key infrastructure, and today, one would always argue that I have been doing this without calling it blockchain. Yes, I agree. And, but today we have a provision that if you really want to do blockchain in the present technological advancement, that you will land up integrating public key infrastructure for this. But whether in this region, we have PKI infrastructure available to facilitate this process, and I'm really happy that I have seen the very first day that there was a MOU signed by AAEC on respecting and facilitating public key infrastructure in this region. And that's a very good initiative for this to really move forward. I have also had the privilege of one of our panelists, the one who has interest in artificial intelligence, and very initiative. One in Singapore where they use it for facilitating HS classification in international trade. That would also be an interesting subject for you to understand. For the benefit of those who want to engage themselves subsequently into these technologies, there are various projects available in UNCFACT, which you would like to really participate and take note of it. One is which integrates and addresses standards while using these technologies. So there is a project of blockchain in trade facilitation, IoT in trade facilitation, artificial intelligence in trade facilitation, and the other one, electronic bill of lading, which I have mentioned to you, is something which really gives you a lot of input and power, not only for facilitating electronic bill of lading in transferability aspects, but also other documents, especially those in the trade finance sector, which you would like to really use it. So let us make a beginning. I am really very happy to tell you that if I was given an option to prepare a panel for this this panel 6, which I did not do, someone else has done it, and I must compliment the organizers that they have drawn a panel which represents the entire globe. You will find somebody from every region participating here, and with wealth of knowledge that they are here before you. So I don't want to be standing between you and the wealth of knowledge which is available sitting here. So let me invite my friend from Brazil. Over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Tassim. First of all, I want to thank Portnet for the invitation and congratulate the African Alliance and Portnet for the perfect organization of this event. And also thank the Kingdom of Morocco and its people for the great reception. So I am Thiago Barbosa. I'm Brazil's single window manager. And I'll talk about the use of technologies in single window, in the Brazilian single window. So, first of all, I want to rephrase the title of my presentation for use of technologies for the benefit of trade facilitation. And why is it? Because we all have to pursue trade facilitation. single window is a tool for it. And so I think that is the best way is implementing all the measures that are described on the TFA agreement, so in the trade facilitation agreement. So first of all, I'll try to show you some outcomes that we can achieve implementing the trade facilitation measures. In Brazil, the main goal of the single window project is the time and cost reduction for the private sector. In the beginning of this year, the National Industry Confederation published a study about time to release a cargo in Brazil. The study shows that we have 8 days of reduction in which process, in the import and in the export process, from 2014 to 2021. Yes, you can see that we came from 13 days in export to 5 days and 17 days to 9 days in the import process. So this time reduction leads us to a cost reduction that represents $20 billion savings per year for the private sector. And what does it mean? That our project in Brazil, the single window project in Brazil, we have a return of investment of 1,000 to 1 because we invested, the government investment is up in turn of about $18 million, and we save by year, the private sector save by year $20 billion. And because of the why of the single window project is developed together with the private sector, and that's why we got such results. Since the beginning of the single window project in Brazil, that's called Portal Único SWCMAROC, we did a partnership with the private sector. But we try to go beyond this partnership. And why I'm saying the single window project is not only made for the private sector in Brazil, it's also made by the private sector, because it's the private sector that, as us, as Brazil government, understand as the foreign trade experts. So the private sector that map, find the bottlenecks and design a new effective process to be implemented by the single window. Now, let me talk about 2 technologies that we use in the Brazil single window. First, I will say about the single window interoperability, that we use blockchain. You can see that I'm giving here example about MRA, the Mutual Recognition Agreements, about authorized economic operators. In Brazil, we have more than 15 MRAs with different countries. We are really focusing in AEO program that is recommended by WCO. And we use a tool, a system that we call bConnect, Blockchain Connect, that we are already using to exchange AEO, but we also already mapped the customs declaration to the WCO data model and the transit declaration to the WCO data model. So all the messages we already mapped to international standards. Perfect. The next one, I will want to show you about risk management, the use of artificial intelligence. What we do, all the declaration, the customs declaration, they are registered by the private sector. We run to a AI system that analyze and present to the customs authority, to the custom officer, the probability of incorrect tariff code, HS code classification that the importer or the exporter put it in the customs declaration. We have 97% of accuracy using this kind of algorithms. We use it for more than 15 years, so the algorithms is becoming year by year more intelligent and more accurate. And now we are starting to also suggest the tariff code or the HS classification to the importer-exporter using the same AI engine to show them, because we are thinking that we want to help the private sector to do the right declaration. And this project is in work in progress. We are trying to get a better AI system to analyze scanned container images. The time that we take is 2 minutes from the arrival of the truck in the port, going through the gate, through the scan, and then get out. What is the scope? In Brazil, we scan 100% cargo of the import cargo, and we scan 100% of cargo to Europe and Africa. And the focus of this project is try to analyze and identify smuggling and narcotics. So what about the digital trade in Brazil? What is the vision of the future of digital trade for Brazil? Brazil supports the intensive use of technology for the benefit for the trade facilitation, and we are putting a lot of effort using international standards, risk management, artificial intelligence, IoT, blockchain, harmonized to WTO data model, and we are leading the discussions in JSI e-commerce, the WTO JSI e-commerce, that it's the new discussions that we are making at the forum of WTO, and we call it as the TFA Plus. We are there discussing and getting and bringing all these new trends to be put in a multilateral agreement. So for me, it's such an honor to have this opportunity to share the challenge and the results about the single window. And my name is Thiago Barbosa, and obrigado.
Thank you, Thiago, for a very detailed input, and I am really fascinated that this single window has come up very well. I have few questions, but I will not go deep into all the questions because of the paucity of time that we have. We are encroaching in some other sessions. So one question I would like to ask you, and if time permits, maybe subsequently I would check with you for my other questions. My request to the audience is that the purpose of today's panel 6 is that it should be very interactive. There are a lot of things in everybody's mind that we feel that it's a technology which disrupts everything and things like that. And which manner this technology can be used to your advantage in facilitating the trade is something which is in everybody's mind that I understand. So if you have any question, the moment a presentation is completed, you can raise your hands. I would really be arguing with you that try to see that this is more interactive. So from your presentation, I take a clue that this is in international trade. We have a single window. We are trying from national single window to go to a regional single window, and that AEC is doing such a great job to integrate this in the African region. But intra-trade in Africa is not the beginning and end of the issues. The issues are that how visible you are across the globe. So AAEC single window which we are trying to achieve should talk to other single windows across the globe. So if, say, Brazilian single window has to talk to AEC single window, what is your advice?
Perfect. Yes, as Brazil, we are open to interoperate and exchange information between all the single windows from customs and AEO companies and everything, but I think the magic word is, like I just showed at the presentation, it's standards, international standards. We always need to implement and harmonize our systems and our data to international standards, because the biggest challenge is not about exchanging data, but understand the message that it is exchanged. So in Brazil, when we start the project, the first thing was the data harmonization. So now we are getting the benefits of have done this job that was really difficult, and I think it might suggest to the other single windows.
Thank you very much, Tiago. I am really impressed with the message you have carried. For all of us, that if you stick to standards, then perhaps you don't have to put extra efforts once you do integration of different single windows in different jurisdiction, or one regional single window talking to other regional single window. There may not be issues if we are sticking to the standards, and there are standards. You have a question? Yes, be quick, and maybe within half a minute we need to finish off this. Yes.
Good morning, all. I have a quick question for Mr. Barbosa. And you mentioned about you have used the blockchain for the MRA of AEO. It's called BConnect. For the AEO custom declaration, transit declaration. I just want to know, this BConnect is for B2B or G2G, cross-border, or a little bit of the function of the BConnect? Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. The focus of this BConnect is G2G. It's an intergov network to exchange customs declaration, transit declaration for pre-arrival information and risk management of the customs. So it's not a solution that is going to be B2G. We do not yet have a regional single window and a unique customs declaration that we can call it as the customs declaration of Mercosur. Each country has its own customs declaration, and then we map it, the main data, the main fields to interchange between the countries to use as a risk management. Okay?
Thank you very much, Tiago. Let me invite the next speaker, Mr. Ziad Butler, MD, Sovereign Border Solutions. He comes from South Africa. His area of specialization is disruptive technologies-based solutions, and I am really impressed to see his presentation. I had the privilege and pleasure of going through his presentation. You will like it, especially with respect to usage of artificial intelligence in facilitating the trade. Floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Thank you to the host for inviting us to this prestigious event. As Tahsin has said, and the other speakers are going to be speaking about, we are talking about innovation and disruptive technologies being at the heart of single windows of the future. But what I've seen, and my area of expertise is a management consultant. I discuss this on both sides, with governments and with private sector. I look at the solutions, I look at the problems, and I see what fits best. And I can honestly say that I believe that the technology is not in the future, it's actually today. It's at the heart of single windows today. You see it everywhere. You see in the applications, in the usage of the technology, in how single windows have been developed and are being developed. So let's start there. What is disruptive technology? And Tahseen touched on this. It's a little bit of a divisive word, because to be disruptive can also be negative. So the real point of being disruptive is to actually be productive. Disruptive technology is one that displaces an established technology and shakes up the industry, or a groundbreaking product that creates a completely new industry. I mean, you'd get many of these definitions. Essentially, what it means is introducing any innovation that fundamentally changes the way you are doing what you are doing. It changes everything. It changes how you do what you do. It changes the way you think, the way you interact, and the way you operate. So, how does disruptive technology, how is it at the heart of it? And if it is at the heart of single windows, why are we not seeing more of these implementations, of these examples that we've been talking about? And the question is really about being productive. It's about using the technology productively, making sure that all the elements come together to facilitate the implementation of the technology, and not just taking a technology and pushing it into an environment that actually is not ready for it. A simple example of a disruptive technology is Tesla cars. It changed the way vehicles are being manufactured, are being driven, are being fueled, are being used, and it's changing the way we are thinking about using that mobility as well. So it is disruptive. Now, all of us here know what challenges. In our lines of business, we either sit on the back, on the side of the governments, or we sit on the side of the solution providers. But all of us understand what those challenges are, and what those technologies are. So these technology solutions that we are looking at, I mean, there's examples of it. Big data and data analytics, as they say, although I don't really know who they are, but they do say that data is the new currency. And being the new currency, it needs to be treated with the same level of respect, control, and security as normal currency. Meaning users need to be sure that the data that is being collected is being used for legitimate and useful purposes and not being abused. And I think the speakers are going to be speaking about data security and breaches of the security as well. IoT, Internet of Things. It's basically a collection of interconnected physical devices that can monitor, report on, and send and exchange data. From a supply chain or trade management perspective, it is an effective way of tracking and authenticating products and shipments using GPS and other technologies. And then we have blockchain. No, we're not talking about Bitcoin or Ethereum only, because that seems to be the common implementation of people or understanding of blockchain. What we are talking about is a means within the supply chain of a decentralized ledger-based format of storing information. The difference with conventional storage is that it is immutable and transparent, allowing for better accuracy, security, and verification. We are going to be looking at a case study in a few minutes. And then cloud computing, which is essentially another storage mechanism, but frees up dependency on physical infrastructure. One of the biggest issues that we have, that we've observed in government agencies, is infrastructure. The lack of development, the lack of infrastructure keeping pace with the development of the single windows and development of trade. Artificial intelligence and machine learning. I mean, it's been a buzzword for many years. You know, everybody has been talking about it. Everybody, and as you've seen from the examples, almost everyone is doing parts of it or doing something with it. There hasn't been a significant push or coordinated push of how it can be applied in supply chain management or management of borders. And it's good to see the different examples and case studies that governments are implementing themselves, so it can be brought together in a coordinated fashion from a single window perspective. In my presentation in Douala a few years back, I spoke to you about how AI and ML are already around us. It's in almost everything we do in a small way. It's a matter of how we can use that to the advantage of trade facilitation. And the best examples I've seen thus far is in risk management, in NLP, in using the technology to actually make the lives of the traders easier. Due to the limited time, I'm just going to look at 2 examples of blockchain that I've observed in a project we are currently working on in Egypt. One on advanced cargo information, and the other one on smart contracts. So the first example is the ACI business process, and you see it to the right. This is the Nafeza system. It's a single window that's been implemented in Egypt at the moment. This solution allows for the pre-arrival advanced submission of information using a blockchain network from exporters. So exporters submit their information using this solution prior to arrival. The application of the blockchain network here is for authentication, unique identification, is for, like we said, immutability, it's for trust, it's for security. So the implementation of blockchain here was to a real-world example. It wasn't just applying a technology to a solution for the sake of it. They actually were solving a problem. And that's what I find lacking in some government agencies. They approach the situation, or they approach it from the perspective of, I have this technology, where do I apply it? As opposed to looking at the problem, identifying what the challenges are, what the issues are, and then taking it to the next step of actually saying, yes, this technology works for this problem. The next example, and please excuse me, I mean, we have a very limited time. I'm happy to discuss in much further detail with anyone who is wishing to, but I'm just showing you a snippet of what it's being used for. The next example is the smart contract. Now, this is taking it a little further. This is taking the blockchain network and its advantages and saying, okay, how do we free up ourselves from a problem that has been existing for very long? And that is one of bill of ladings, electronic bill of ladings, and ownership and letters of credit, applying for letters of credit from banks. When Egypt looked at their situation, they identified these as critical or core issues within their supply chain management. So they looked at how they could use the technology they had at hand to actually solve this problem. And what they did was, they're currently running a pilot on this, so it is very, very fresh, very new, and they've identified ways that they can use this technology to bring all the different parties together on one platform, all identified, all recognizable, all immutable. And using this solution, they have been able to implement an electronic bill of lading solution using standards that are in place. The one that they chose was FIATA, which is a Freight Forwarders International Association, and they're using that as a basis for development of the EBL and the transfer of ownership of that using smart contract within the blockchain network. So these are just examples of how it was used and how blockchain was used as a technology to solve a problem. And I think that's the key of my message today. Use technology to solve a problem, not just technology for the sake of technology. The real world impact of this obviously was that they reduced their turnaround time by 50%. I mean, it went down from 20 plus days to less than 10 days. And they're still tracking it, and every month it's getting better. That's not to look at not considering the value savings to traders. And, you know, it's something that I come across often when I consult agencies, government agencies. They say that, you know, traders always challenge when new solutions come in. And that's true. They do challenge because they have an issue, or they may find difficulty in changing the way they do business because it comes with a cost. But once they start seeing the benefits, once they start appreciating that actually what you are implementing is for their facilitation, they start buying into it. And that really comes with the way you introduce your solution or you implement it. I'm going to run through these very quickly. It's just to remind you that I think we spoke about this previously as well. No technology is a solution on its own. Everything, it's part of a bigger solution and a holistic approach to how you implement it. And without each element of these, you will fail, or your solution will fail. And then bringing you back to the example, a real-world example of technology or use of technology. Yes, Tesla is a disruptive technology. However, we have to be very careful that when we are doing this, or when we are implementing our disruptive technology, we actually don't introduce an unproductive disruption by making sure that everything comes together, the infrastructure is in place for our solutions. And with that, I'd like to thank once again our hosts. Thank you. Merci. Shukran.
Thank you very much, Ziad, for, I'm really impressed with your slide where you have integrated blockchain, artificial intelligence, and other disruptive technologies in one slide. Since we are short of time, I have few questions for you, but sorry that I have exhausted few of my questions one-to-one with him. One which is very related to you knowing this, that I asked him yesterday that you have a solution, whether it meets the standards. Standards in the sense that if we are talking about electronic bill of lading and its transferability, whether it meets the basic provisions stipulated in the UNCITRAL model law on electronically transferable record, that you have converted that model law into technology, whether it meets all the provisions of this, and his answer was yes. So this is for the benefit of all of you, that it is necessary for us to know that we conform to the standards if we are talking about interoperability. So my question to you is that if electronic bill of lading is to be implemented by member states under AAEC, what is your suggestions to them that how they should go about doing that?
Well, I think you've answered your own question, Tahsin, but I think for the prerequisites for them, and at the risk of repetition, has to be standards. Using a very real-world examples, the translators who are doing a very brilliant job in the back of the room, they are transferring what I am saying in English to those listening in French. That has to be based on a standard. That's something that's in between that's allowing them to do that. And that's literally what these standards do. They allow you a means and a mechanism of communication and interoperability between different systems. So those standards that you spoke about, UN-CITRAL, the model law, DCSA is soon releasing their EBL standard as well. The one that Egypt chose was FIATA, FBL, which is a starting point. It's a good one, but it needs to be expanded, and we've advised them such that they need to widen their scope in order to include all the different agencies in all the different single windows around the world.
Thank you very much, Siddharth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me invite our next speaker, Ms. Nilima Pamarapat. Sorry if I have not pronounced it properly. She is director in Crimson Logic, Singapore. She has wealth of experience, and she specializes in the area of single window-based system development and management using the technology we are discussing today in this session. Floor is yours, Nilima. She has already exhausted her presentation with me, so I have a query and questions for you. I do believe that that Singapore has implemented a system where artificial intelligence is integrated with the harmonized system of classification and facilitating the trade. So would you like to tell us as to how difficult or how easy it is to integrate this into our work program? I am not saying especially for Singapore. I am speaking on behalf of AAEC today, that if it is to be replicated in Africa, how easy or difficult it is.
Thank you very much for this question. Okay, I would like to share my experience in even trying to apply this for the African countries, right? So before that, I would like to share the where we have started in Crimson Logic. Back even before the WCO study on disruptive study reports, or the other studies by ADB and other organizations, they recognize that AI, one of the application use cases is classification, to solve the classification problem. For us in our company, what we have done is back in early 2012, 13, during that time itself, we worked with a professor in National University of Singapore, and we came up with an algorithm. We applied early stages of machine learning itself. We prepare an algorithm that can help us to advise the traders, in searching the right HS code for the products using the layman terms. So we started by using in our own service that we provide to traders in Singapore as a smart HS classification search engine to test how effective it is. Because these AI models need a lot of data and it takes years. We can't say that, okay, today we develop and it can apply tomorrow. It takes time to learn and improve, relearn for these models. So now I can say in Singapore and ASEAN, because the HS organization code is is standardized across ASEAN countries, we are able to provide more accurate. Then the next step, what we have done is we bundle with our solutions, and soon we are going to deploy in Caribbean country and Latin America and one of the country in GCC, this same learning that we have prepared in Singapore. So after this, what we have done is we started exploring how we can apply to some of our partners in Africa, some of our implementations. So we gathered HS classification information, whatever is available on internet, and also on respective national websites like trade information portals and some ITC portals. There are many. What we found is not all countries on this continent adopted to HS classification. So the first step is to first bring them to the latest 2022 version HS code. Because some of them, right, if I'm not wrong, some are still using HS classification 2007.
No, my question is not HS classification per se. I'm saying any classification and it is to be integrated into the system.
First, once we standardize all this, then we can easily apply the model to that. So I believe in Africa right now, WCO is doing the, harmonization across the countries. Once it is there, I think we can ingest the data and train the models. What I'm trying to say is technology is available. It's important to apply the, to the right data or the clean data.
Thank you, Nilima. Since you did not make a presentation, so I have little time left for you to ask a supplementary question. You must have seen on the very first day, African Alliance has a great initiative that they signed an MOU with a company to facilitate public key infrastructure in the African region, especially with respect to the AAEC members, that we understand that the public key infrastructure is building up in this region, and the backbone for a initiative in blockchain perhaps rests on public key infrastructure. Can you tell everyone here how easy or difficult is the deployment of public key infrastructure in a jurisdiction or in a country?
For this to answer, because to me, I find that's a great initiative. At least they start with the PKI model. But for us, I believe that more. It's better to start with blockchain, but they have this PKI already taken up. So to me, what I can say is that if all the member states are adopting this, they can go by hosting a node, and they can trust each other. They can create a trusted network among themselves and start exchanging. They are already started with eTrade Hub. Maybe they can leverage on this infrastructure to exchange and trust the data that they are sharing in their eTrade Hub.
Thank you, Nilima. She has answered half of my question. I'll answer half on her behalf. What could be the how difficult or easy it is to deploy a public key infrastructure in a jurisdiction. it's really little difficult, in the sense that that not only that you have to create an infrastructure, but also you will have to create a mechanism for identifying or verifying a party, his authenticity, and all those things is to be verified before a certificate is issued to him. So if that is the case, then one has to present himself in person, or he has to give sufficient evidence that he is the one for which a certificate is being issued. So meaning thereby a verification process is to be built into the system, which is a little difficult process. So there is a case that if you use a technology, you should also use another technology to see that you address this verifiability issue. So, somebody will say, work on verifiable credentials. So these are some of the issues which perhaps is a vicious circle, and you have to prepare yourself as a country to address these two things if really it has to move forward. Thank you very much, Nilma, for your input. And then I will move to Shantanu, my old friend that he started in IBM research. He is basically in the research in IBM in blockchain, and not only that he did a desk work of research, but he also brought his research to the trade and industry, that he developed a system based at Singapore. At that time he was there, that this is facilitating the trade. So though he has changed his hat in terms of his portfolio from disruptive technologies to the area of climate change and sustainability, which is the buzzword of the day, but unfortunately we are discussing little of this particular climate change and sustainability in this platform, which otherwise we should have discussed. So let us see how things develops. He has a wealth of knowledge on this subject, so he has a presentation to you.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. First of all, before anything I would like to say, I actually don't see this as an old topic and a new topic. They are so intricately related that sustainable trade and development, sustainable enterprises, caring for the environment and planet, it all goes hand in hand. So I would actually argue against that it's an old piece of work versus new piece of work, as I think will be obvious from my presentation. So good morning, esteemed ladies and gentlemen, respected moderator and co-panelists, and a heartfelt thanks to Portnet Morocco for the invitation to speak here and the opportunity to meet all of you and see the beautiful city of Marrakesh. So my topic here is innovative and disruptive technologies, and I agree with Mr. Khan in the beginning that I think advanced technologies is the better way to kind of look at it. Basically we see that, I think some part of the slides is not visible, but that's fine. But customs authorities are typically faced with conflicting goals of facilitation and control in the midst of an increasingly challenging environment. And we all know that, I mean, you all know probably better than me that increased workloads and service expectations leading to an increasing complex networks of government and private sector participation is all happening in the midst of increased sophisticated global threats. So big data creates an even greater challenge, and you can see some statistics here in terms of the number of container movements and the number of users, which have created gigantic amounts of data today. So about 6-7 years ago, they say that we entered what is called the zettabyte era, that is 1 followed by 21 zeros. So forget gigabyte, megabyte, exabyte, terabyte, and so on. Zettabyte is what we are talking about, and it's anticipated that there's about 50 to 60 zettabytes of information out there in the world today, all thanks to streaming, mobile phone usage, social media, and so on. And it's anticipated that just this 60 zettabytes today will become about 180 to 200 zettabytes in 3 years, just by 2025. So imagine what customs agencies and other governmental organizations must do to master strategies to survive and thrive
in this while doing what they want to do, what they need to do, things like trade facilitation, others, right? So customer-oriented processes, intelligence-led risk-based supervision, and coordinated digital clearance processes. You saw some excellent examples today, as well as through the single window session from the African member nations yesterday, and all of them were very, very heartening to see. And I think it's emerging technologies and advanced technologies which can really supercharge these strategies that need to be adopted, right? So I think we have all been talking about the buzzwords of the day: blockchain, data and AI, and what I will talk about is, crypto advances. So I will argue that big data and artificial intelligence is here to stay. It's already in implementation in production. People are using it regularly now. This was not the case 20 years ago. Although that the discipline of advanced artificial intelligence has existed for about 50 years, it took a combination of factors, which I'll talk about later, for it to really become a real technology. Blockchain is something that people are talking about very regularly every day, and I will talk a little more scientifically and technically.
It is being translated for other languages, so speak a little.
Okay, thank you. So, so I've been asked to speak a little slowly. Thank you, sir. So big data and AI, as I said, is already here. Blockchain is a topic which is being talked about. You saw, I think, the majority of the presentations so far already gave you very concrete case studies about blockchain. And the scientist in me cannot resist talking about some of the advanced technologies that are still 5 to 10 years away, things like advanced cryptography, things like fully homomorphic encryption, quantum computing. We don't know whether they will be here in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, but it is this spectrum that the authorities must be cognizant of. If you have adopted one, you are playing around with the other, you should have the third one in your horizon going forward, right? So again, the scientist in me can never refrain from spending at least 30 seconds to 1 minute talking about what is blockchain, because I think we have seen a lot of case studies, but I find these 1 or 2 diagrams really help home the point about what is blockchain and why it is important. It is not necessarily the only way to do things, but it is a start. It is some technology which has been around for about 10 years, but it is now slowly starting to mature, as you have seen and as you will continue to see. So imagine this very standard trade scenario of import-export between an importer and an exporter, their respective customs authorities, a bank from a letter of credit perspective, and a freight company, right? Each line that you see connecting these 6 entities is either a piece of paper, a phone call, a fax message, a EDI message, or an API call, right? And you can see that information and data is flying all over the place. And that is obviously inefficient, expensive, paper-based, prone to errors, and those kind of things. So blockchain is a very simple idea which says that with the appropriate security, privacy, and control mechanisms in place, why can't all these 6 entities have the same copy of the transaction which is being transacted? That does not mean the customs authorities are opening their doors to their databases and making all their information available to every single party, every trader out there in the world, right? What it means that every entity will choose what data to contribute to the blockchain, what data to read from the blockchain. And the blockchain, you can imagine it is like a database or a ledger which is replicated simultaneously and immediately with each of the entities which are participating in the network. This is a simple one border crossing scenario where there is a import-export transaction between 2 traders, but obviously you can expand the scope of this example, as Tiago talked about, multiple government-to-government blockchain, the example from Mr. Ziad, and several other examples that exist in blockchain today. And you see at the bottom, these are the factors, or these are the characteristics which really make blockchain an kind of a appealing technology. But that does not mean you have to use blockchain. But what are the features of this kind of technology that you want to imbibe going forward? Those would be a shared ledger, a shared trusted source of truth. A ledger, as you know, in the finance terms, is your, all your financial accounts, right? And in this case, it is all your trade accounts, all your movement of goods, all the clearances associated with it, and so on. Then you have smart contracts, which are essentially rules that are triggered whenever an action happens or an event happens in your database. And all of this is subjected to industry-grade privacy, security, compliance, and all of this fosters trust, as you have been seeing through several of the examples that have been talked about. One thing I wanted to clarify is that although blockchain has become a popular buzzword because of cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin and all of those things, whenever most of the private sector, all the public sector and government authorities talk about blockchain, they do not talk about cryptocurrency. They talk about these kind of blockchains, which are about shared, replicated, permissioned ledgers. So permission means, the appropriate KYC has been done, the appropriate authentication, identification of the individuals or the entities which are acting on the blockchain. All of this has been done. And all of this happens with consensus, provenance, and immutability. So a record written on the blockchain, you cannot take it back. You can at the most add another record which says that the previous record is invalid. So you can never say, oh, I did not do something. I did not, I have already paid somebody and so on and so forth, right? But on the blockchain, you can trace each and every action of each and every party, which is why it is very important to understand that it is the control of these 6 boxes, the 6 entities. They choose what to read and write from the blockchain. And obviously, all of this has to be based on a shared governance mechanism, standards, obviously international standards, and a way of doing business and governmental work with authority, right? So here is something which literally is news from last week. We already saw some examples, but one of the largest banks, for example, Citibank, did a bill of lading, an e-bill of lading transaction, and provided credit and so on for an import-export transaction between India and Bangladesh for Syngenta, which is a big global company. And obviously, using the e-bill, it is estimated to have reduced the transaction times from 10 days, as well as reduced paperwork costs, postage charges, demurrage charges for storage, and so on and so forth, right? And while some specific platforms were used, the important point is at the bottom you see that global organizations like WTO and ICC have been addressing the issues around standards, and obviously all of this comes along with the legal and regulatory frameworks that need to be in place, because these are still pilot projects, but the MLETR that Mr. Khan mentioned in the beginning is a very key instrument, and as far as I know, as of now, only 3 countries, Singapore, Bahrain, and Abu Dhabi, have adopted some variant of MLETR and embodied the provisions that are talked about in MLETR, right? Things like technology neutrality, so you don't have to use blockchain, right? Functional equivalence, robust practical solutions, most importantly, cross-border mutual recognition. So a private sector overview of some of these trade-related blockchain initiatives. Obviously, the private sector is going after these initiatives at a faster rate in terms of where they may not have dependence on government authorities, but they can still do and transact their business faster, more efficiently, save cost with trusted invoicing and those kind of solutions. And here is a big list of across, you can see payments, trade logistics, trade finance, and so on. There's a lot of activity happening. So with that, I'll come to a very quick example of, can AI and blockchain work together, right? So imagine a food safety use case, right, where you are, importing, say, corn, spinach, and salad over countries in Southeast Asia. You can easily take examples from Africa, and which are being packed and into, say, a mixed salad in Singapore, and then distributed in supermarket stores across Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, and so on. So here's a snapshot of a supply chain where, you have 5 farms which are producing your tomatoes, your corn, your spinach, and so on. There are processing units, packaging units, and supermarket stores where all this is led. But using artificial intelligence, the capability of remote sensing, weather forecasting, and so on, you can nowadays quite accurately predict the risk of pests and diseases in these kind of fresh produce. Now imagine that as these ingredients start to come together, you can actually identify that there's a very high risk of some salad being contaminated in that particular packaging unit, which is then going to ship out, this possibly risky salad into supermarket stores, and the customs authorities, along with the appropriate food safety authorities, can order, proactive inspections and those kind of cases. So with that, the last 30 odd seconds that I'll spend on is a set of technologies which is coming in, say, about 5 to 10 years' time, which is, privacy preserving computation. So how do you, first of all, it's a leap of faith and it's going to take time before blockchain really has the global benefits that it promises. But some of the building blocks for privacy preserving collaboration are already happening in the scientific and the academic community. So there's blockchain on the left, the blue box. There is zero knowledge proofs, and it's a very, it's a complicated mathematical ideal, but outside I can explain it in simple words, which leads to secure multi-party computation. Imagine this use case, right? So obviously, an importer or an exporter will show the blue box to the customs authorities, right? Here is a shipment of goods, some number of TVs costing so many, here is the total value, here is the calculated tax and the customs duties, and it is paid, and so on and so forth. But this information, there is unwillingness to share this with, say, freight forwarders and customs brokers and other parties in the trade network. So this whole idea of secure multi-party computation and privacy-preserving collaboration says that just the templates can be shared without sharing the values, and there can be mathematical proof which can be embedded into smart contracts, which can be embedded into data, which can be verifiable, and everybody will have the assurance that the customs duty or the taxes have been appropriately calculated without actually seeing, things like, 10 TVs of $2,000 each, which cost $20,000, $2,400 tax, and so on and so forth. Without actually seeing the numbers, you can be assured that the tax has been appropriately calculated, and so on. So with that, I come to my summary that significant technological advances are being made in the area of digitalization of trade and making it sustainable. And most importantly, we need to kind of be aware of what are the factors which will make the business, the processes, the processing of all of these things easier. And many of these are in step with the regulatory and legal things that need to happen to support this. And I think at the end, I would like to end with saying that this is really a call for collaboration between the technical, regulatory, legal, and the private sector communities to really work collaboratively to digitalize trade and make it sustainable. So thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Shantanu. I am a very great fan of your research and its application to the trade facilitation. I have two questions, but one I will reserve for later if the time permits. And the first one, which is more relevant for this region, is that these advanced technologies are the future of trade facilitation as we see today. How you see the African region is ready for it? Your input. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So as I said earlier, artificial intelligence, for example, has been around for 50 years, but it took advances in hardware like GPUs, software in terms of new algorithms for processing, and the availability of data, which really happened in the last 10, 12 years, which has made artificial intelligence come into its own and get adopted, right? Similarly, technologies like blockchain need the enabling building blocks of digitalization, which, as we have been hearing over the last 3 days, is definitely happening in Africa. The fantastic presentations from the several single windows in the session yesterday was key to the fact that all that is happening. With the regulatory frameworks and these ideas like MLETR, which are not only these 3 countries that I mentioned have adopted in some shape or form, but even the G7 countries have committed that they will look closely and try to implement it in some time. I guess it may take a couple of years or so. But looking at the state of advancement, digitalization of what's happening in Africa through the several presentations made over the last couple of days, there is no doubt in my mind that this region is ready to at least try out some of these things. And obviously, it has to be done in lockstep with the regulatory changes and these MLETR kind of mechanisms which need to happen so that, there can be a confluence of all these factors so that these technologies, with or without blockchain, can really take off, like artificial intelligence is kind of here to stay. Thank you.
Thank Thank you, Shantanu. I reserve my second question for, if the time permits, I'll come back to you. We have privilege of two senior representatives from Malaysia. One is Mr. Azlan Zainal Abidin, Group CEO IT, Dangang Net Exchange. And the other one is Mr. Wan Ahmad as the CEO Dangang Net Technologies Malaysia. And let us hear. They have a very interesting journey, and many of us must have passed through. They started from that traditional time that when UN EDIFACT was the prevalent support for facilitating trade within a jurisdiction and cross-border. And then from there, they moved to adopting different technologies as we went along. And everything was transferred into a single window environment, integrating the technologies which we are debating today in this session. So let us hear them. The floor is yours.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. My distinguished moderator, Mr. Tassin, my distinguished panel of experts, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I think I'm probably the fourth speaker today, and you have probably heard everything that you want to hear about innovative technology. Truth to be told, I think the speakers took all my points. So I'll probably be regurgitating it a bit, so please bear with me. However, I think the best thing about this is I'll try to give you from a perspective of an operator rather than a perspective of a technical evangelist, yeah? Okay. As what Mr. Tassin mentioned, DagangNet has been actually the strategic partner of the government of Malaysia to operate the trade facilitation platform for the last 30 years. We have actually evolved in tandem with the advancement of technology from the days of EDI in stage A, or the first phase of technology, up to now the NSW, and we are actually at the ASEAN single window. Yeah. A few things that we wanted to notable or innovation in terms of our milestones is that we were the first to actually establish a cross-border exchange with Indonesia, as well as the first to actually establish a cross-border exchange with KTNet from South Korea in Asia. We have onboarded about 30 OGAs or other government agencies or ministries where everybody transacts in terms of the certificates, permits, licenses on one single platform. We have also established in terms of the connectivity and platform for the ASEAN country members. Yeah? Just a bit in terms of the company DNEX that I represent. The company provides an end-to-end services and offerings in digital transformation, as well as in terms of trade digital ecosystem. We have the company DagangNet, who provides the digital platform for G2G in terms of NSW and trade facilitation. We have SILNet that provides trade solutions and industry solutions for B2B, business to business. And also we have IA Consulting, which is the technology consulting arm that provides system integration, ERP, cloud migration, application development, innovation, such as big data analytics, as well as low-code programming and development. Some of the few things that we have actually achieved regionally, what I have mentioned earlier, due to the pandemic, we have all seen digitalization accelerating in all the countries. Yeah? We've gone live with a few documents or e-documents or e-certs, which is Artiga Form D in year 2020. And the initiative, we have also gone live with ACDD in 2021. In the pipeline, we've got about 5 or 6 more in terms of e-certificates to actually go live to facilitate trade even further. Yeah. Some of the initiatives that we have outside ASEAN is between the Department of Agriculture as well with the primary industry of New Zealand, where we have actually gone live since July 2022 for animal health certificate or e-certs. Yeah? Next one, what we're actually planning to do is to digitalize the phytosanitary certificates with the government of Australia. And furthermore, after that, in October this year or first quarter of next year, we plan to actually connect with about 184 IPCC member countries, which will actually cover globally. Yeah? I think that's just to give you a bit of a snapshot, a snippet of where we actually come from and where we have been and at our status quo. Yeah? Being the operator of trade facilitation or NSW for the government, obviously we cannot sit on our laurels. We have to actually innovate. We have to actually go forward in order to provide better service to the government, as well as to the nation of Malaysia and globally. Yeah? My fellow colleagues, Mr. Santanu, Mr. Ziad, Mr. Tassin, everybody here has actually covered everything that I have in my slides. Yeah? So I'll probably just give you some specific points. These are the buzzwords, yeah, like what Mr. Santanu said, in terms of the technology today. Yeah? We see blockchain as one of the foundation layers, which would actually provide you the integrity, the trust, in terms of transactions, recording transactions going forward. We see Internet of Things that can actually provide an advancement in terms of tracking vehicles, tracking goods, tracking containers across the ports and across borders. We could also see big data as analytics applied to predictive analytics to accurately assess in terms of the risk going forward for any trade transactions. Yeah? And at the top of it, we could actually see machine learning as well as artificial intelligence to help ease as well as accelerate trade processes such as intelligent document processing. Yeah? Good to actually have POCs, good to have pilots, but they would not be successful without 3 main elements. The first element is these technologies are there to solve real feasible for you to actually apply them. And last but not least, the most important, I think, is actually the government, the involvement and engagement of the government itself, right? You need the right policies in place, the right legal frameworks for it to actually be structured and for it to actually be, in terms of the adoption, to be accelerated. In Malaysia, we are fortunate enough to see that the government has actually thought forward. The government has come up with a few initiatives in order to accelerate the digital transformation and adoption. One of the catalysts in the government that's going on right now is actually the deployment of 5G. The government has taken a stake in that deployment, and they have actually deployed for the big cities. We're looking at a full all-nation deployment probably in the next 1 or 2 years. Yeah? So I think 5G is very critical in terms of providing the right infrastructure and connectivity for all the other technologies to actually be applied. Secondly, the government has also come up with an initiative called My Digital. They have come up with the My Digital Economic Blueprint, and that blueprint actually has about 3 objectives. The 3 objectives are encourage industry players to be creators and users and adopters of innovative technologies. The second objective is to harness human capital in digital economy, and I've got 1 minute left. Thank you, Mr. And the last is to encourage and nurture integrated ecosystem. I think the gist of it is that initiative, the outcome of the initiative, what the government wants to do is to create 500,000 jobs with these innovative technologies, increase productivity through about 30% by a year to 2025, increase GDP, which are digital related to about 23%, and also to have an 80% end-to-end online government services, right? So I think the three main elements what I said earlier, which is number one, there has to be a genuine problem to be solved. Number two, to actually have the real demand from private companies, sectors, as well as consumers. And number three is to actually have the government involvement to help in terms of the adoption. I'm going to skip the slides. I think our friends here have actually covered it in much detail. These are the attractive characteristics of the blockchain technology. These are the pain points which blockchain technology will actually address in terms of trade facilitation specifically. Yeah? And I think in terms of the blockchain, why it can actually be applied to a national single window, it does not disrupt the current infrastructure that you have. I feel that countries who have not embarked on a national single window, you actually have the advantage because you don't actually have the infrastructure layer already in place, and you can actually try to adopt blockchain upfront at this point of time. For countries who actually has established that layer of integration, you probably have to actually do a lot of APIs and a lot of integration to actually put blockchain in place. Yeah? Blockchain, it improves the overall trust, it gives you superior performance, data security, and it's actually scalable. Yeah? This is the Malaysian blueprint in terms of a blockchain roadmap. If you see here, it's spearheaded by the Ministry of Science, Technology, Innovation. There are three pillars that is important in terms of the blockchain initiative or strategy, which is infrastructure, notarization services, as well as zero-knowledge proof mechanism. I think most of this has been covered by my friend Santanu earlier. This blockchain initiative or strategy focuses on two areas in Malaysia, which is trade facilitation as well as government services. Yeah? Just a few things from an operator standpoint that we are actually exploring with or playing with at the moment is with big data analytics. We have actually done some POCs as well as some pilots in terms of cargo risk profiles. I think the gist of it is in terms of the reconciliation between manifest and declaration forms. We see that some of it has been done in sampling terms. We want to do it overall to have actually more accurate risk assessment going forward. What we have actually seen is that with that pilot and POC, it has actually helped us in terms of the process automation, helped us in terms of risk assessment as well as fraud detection. Yeah? I think with that, I will actually close my presentation today. I believe if there were only three things for you to take away from my presentation, Dagang Next is in Malaysia, so you can always call me if you need any help. And the other two things is actually, that for cutting-edge technology to be successful and adopted, there has to be three main elements. There has to be a genuine problem or challenge to be solved. There has to actually be a demand from the private sector as well as from the consumers. And there has to be actually a government initiative or a government engagement to accelerate in terms of adoption and the success of the whole initiative. And with that, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Azlan, and sorry that I had to cut short your presentation. I wish we would have more time to understand from you that you have wealth of knowledge because of the fact that you initiated as a company and walked through all steps of systems development right from the UN EDIFACT days till today when we are discussing not only single window, but disruptive technologies integration into it. So I would have loved to listen more, not only that you participate, you have done something in Malaysia, and that is an example for us in Africa, but also that you have been part of a regional alliance which is a parallel alliance of AAEC. You can see that there is a case for both of you to participate, and that you have an MOU to support that. I appreciate that. And beyond that also, I would like to hear from you, if the time permits, maybe once we are through with everyone, that your alliance and Pan-Asia alliance of service providers to share information across boundaries. So that's something which really fascinates me, but we get governed by the time constraints which are there. The next session will start in another 15 minutes time. The panel 7 will be on in 15 minutes time, so that's the reason that I had to cut short your presentation. Let me invite we have a very eminent personality who talks on the subject of cyber security, authentication, and giving legal backing to an electronic record and document. That is necessary, that many times we do trade facilitation, and we do integration of technologies into our work program, but we forget about legal provisions and the technology provisions to support this. So let us hear from him. He is Mr. Yusuf at Kodud. He is from UI, Morocco, and he is expert in cyber security and all related subjects which are necessary for us to deal with it when we are trying to go on the path of digitalization of the complete international trade supply chain. Mr. Yusuf, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Salam alaikum, bonjour tout le monde. En fait, je voudrais bien féliciter l'équipe Portnet pour l'organisation et la réussite de cette conférence. Je voudrais aussi les remercier de m'avoir donné l'opportunité d'assister à cette conférence dans laquelle j'ai pu apprendre beaucoup de choses. Certainement pour la partie guichet unique. Depuis le concept du guichet unique et aussi les différents aspects de digitalisation afin de fluidifier le commerce international. Je vois que déjà le fait d'avoir un guichet unique, c'est un premier pas dans la première phase de digitalisation. C'est digitalisation qui va faire appel à une panoplie de technologies, à savoir, comme on avait pu suivre maintenant pour ce qui a été évoqué par mes chers panélistes, le blockchain, le cloud, la 5G, le big data et ainsi de suite. Je vais compléter ce qui m'a interpellé pendant les panels précédents, c'est que la plupart des intervenants ont évoqué le fait que la sécurité de l'information et la protection des données font partie des contraintes des contraintes de la digitalisation totale des plateformes, que ce soit lorsqu'on parle du guichet unique ou bien dans d'autres industries. En fait, merci. On peut faire la différence entre la sécurité de l'information, qui est l'assurance de la disponibilité, l'intégrité et l'authenticité des données. La cybersécurité, c'est l'assurance de la résilience et la sécurité des infrastructures qui sont utilisé pour acheminer les données et pour faire l'échange entre les parties, impliquées que ce soit dans le commerce ou bien d'autres domaines. Certainement, on voit récemment que les nouvelles technologies ont littéralement transformé notre mode de vie, notre société. Ceci avec l'avènement des nouvelles technologies et aussi avec la démocratisation de l'Internet. Ces nouvelles technologies continuent à représenter un levier potentiel pour le développement socio-économique des pays du monde entier. Et récemment, le Boston Consulting Group ont publié une étude qui prévoit que les nouvelles technologies de l'information vont stimuler une croissance de productivité entre 15% et 25% dans les prochaines années. D'autre part, les nouvelles technologies, elles annoncent un monde où tous les appareils, que ce soit personnel ou bien les équipements d'entreprise, seront interconnectés et seront intelligents. Bien sûr, qui dit interconnexion et intelligence, il va penser directement au risque de cybersécurité. Ce qui va rendre le cyberspace qui est un espace virtuel dématérialisé où les frontières sont abolies et où tous les systèmes sont interconnectés que je viens de dire. En fait, ce cyberspace, qu'on appelle cyberspace, il est devenu récemment l'arène de vie, l'arène de service, l'arène aussi un espace de travail, un espace d'échange, de commerce, aussi d'échange. En fait, va être utilisé dans la plupart des industries. Mais, sans oublier, mais c'est avec, ou bien, le numérique va aussi, il attend d'opportunités de développement, de gouvernance ou bien de souveraineté, mais aussi il est porteur de risques. Les risques cyber qui s'ajoutent bien aussi aux risques financiers ou bien aux risques technologiques. Récemment, le Forum économique mondial, ils ont publié leur rapport. Dans ce rapport, les risques relatifs à la cybersécurité ou bien à la cybercriminalité sont classés en top 3 des risques qui menacent l'économie mondiale en 2022. Ils s'ajoutent, ou bien ils viennent après les risques relatifs aux crises climatiques et aux risques relatifs à l'aggravation des disparités sociales. Donc, il est nécessaire que les organisations et les entreprises mettent en place une stratégie de cybersécurité afin d'assurer une continuité de leur business et afin d'avoir un cyberspace qui est sécurisé, là où les échanges peuvent être faits en toute confidentialité. Pour ce faire, il y a des recommandations ou bien des stratégies à inclure dans chaque vision de digitalisation d'entreprise ou bien d'organisation. Le premier levier, c'est avoir un véritable arsenal juridique et réglementaire afin de prédire ou bien de lutter contre la cybercriminalité. Le deuxième point, c'est adopter les normes et les standards internationaux. Il y en a plein. Par exemple, pour la cybersécurité, on a le 27001 qui réglemente tous les aspects de cybersécurité ou bien la sécurité de l'information. En plus, on a des standards aussi qui ont été développés par les organismes de chaque industrie. Je cite ici le GSMA et le 3GPP qui ont développé un framework de cybersécurité, que ce soit pour la technologie de la 5G, parce qu'on vient de parler de la 5G, de cloud, et même pour l'utilisation des IoT. Le troisième pilier, c'est l'encouragement de la formation des nouvelles compétences en matière de cybersécurité et de protection des données. Quatrièmement, c'est l'encouragement de la sensibilisation et la formation, que ce soit au sein des organisations, ou bien à l'extérieur, ou bien public, pour qu'on puisse sensibiliser tout l'écosystème par rapport aux contraintes ou bien par rapport au risque de cybercriminalité, et quelles sont les mesures à prendre dans le cas, ou bien quelles sont les mesures à prendre pour avoir cet écosystème sécurisé. Et surtout maintenant, on parle du commerce international qui est un levier important pour le développement des pays. Donc, on doit, par exemple, dans l'écosystème du commerce international, on doit faire ou bien investir dans la sensibilisation et la formation de toutes les parties prenantes de cet écosystème. Cinquièmement, c'est favoriser le déploiement des nouvelles technologies pour assurer ou bien pour affirmer une souveraineté sur les données. Par exemple, la construction des propres data centers et avoir un cloud souverain, ce qui est déjà pris en considération dans le nouveau modèle de développement. Par exemple, si on prend l'exemple du Maroc, c'est déjà pris en considération dans le nouveau développement du Maroc et dans la stratégie de digitalisation du gouvernement ou bien de tous les secteurs du gouvernement. Je termine sur le cas du Maroc par rapport à la cybersécurité. En fait, le Royaume du Maroc a pu enregistrer une progression au classement de l'index global de cybersécurité de l'Union internationale de télécommunications. En fait, le Maroc a progressé entre 2018 et 2020 du 93e au 50e rang à l'échelle mondiale. Ceci grâce aux efforts consentis dans le cadre de la stratégie nationale de cybersécurité et l'adoption de plusieurs lois qui réglementent cette partie-là, à savoir la loi sur la cybersécurité, la loi sur la protection des données, et récemment on a adopté et publié la loi de services de confidentialité pour la transaction électronique. Et voilà. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Yusuf, that in a very short time you have been able to give the perspective of Morocco and as well message to everyone as to what really is needed to be done. My question to you is that we are debating that that we do digitalization of the complete international trade supply chain in all the jurisdictions or the states of Africa, and especially the membership of the AAEC. And there are a varying level of preparedness of the member states, as I have seen. So if you have to advise to all the members that there is a technology which is available which addresses cyber security requirements. Also, there are technologies to protect the data, to secure the data, and also induce a level of confidence in the users that the data is secured and it is not compromised while it is traveling from one jurisdiction to other jurisdiction. So tell us in name terms as to, if you have to advise them as to technology is there, but what legal provisions they should ensure that these technologies can be infused, used, adopted by the member states, which gives them the kind of comfort one is looking forward from this cybersecurity and the data privacy, data protection angles.
Okay, thank you. This is a very good question. In fact, as I said during my speech, normally the cybersecurity is not only the matter of one organization. Normally it should be seen from a collaborative ecosystem, including the concerned organization, the partners, the media, and also the government and regulators. From the government and regulators' point of view, they should adopt For example, we have many laws which are regulating the cybersecurity, are regulating the data privacy protection, are regulating also the electronic transaction. They should adopt those kind of laws with the evolution of the technologies. So if we are working in a collaborative approach in the whole ecosystem, I think we will succeed to assure this cybersecurity, information security, and protection of the data. Because everyone in the ecosystem will be aware about the risks and the threat that that this working in one interconnected cyberspace can evolve.
Thank you, Yusuf. The message for all of you is loud and clear that the technologies are available off the shelf to integrate it in your work program of whatever you are doing to streamline the supply chain of the international trade. But if these technologies do not have a legal backing in your jurisdiction, then technologies are meaningless. So it's in your best interest to ensure that your legal provisions are in order. And if it is not in order, many of the places it happens that you bring a technology and then you realize that you don't have a legal backing for this technology to take shape within the jurisdiction. So be aware of this and ensure that once you start doing digitalization, the legal provisions are also addressed simultaneously, because the technology infusion takes less time. The amendments of the legal framework takes more time because it has to pass through so many hurdles and may perhaps in many of the places as go to the parliament to the highest level of the signing of the degree by the government, or the king has to approve it. So these are other things which need to be taken into considerations. Before I go to asking other questions to my panelists, I initially said that it should be more interactive so that we derive the benefit of physical presence here. And we had allowed few questions earlier, but then after we were in a hurry to ensure that the panel number 6 is not delayed beyond a point. But still, I have some time to open the floor for questions. And if you have questions, please raise your hand. Floor is open. Oh yes, please identify yourself and then also tell us to whom you are raising this question.
Thank you. My name is Dominique Jinke. In fact, I'm addressing my question even more to the AAC member than to the panelists. The reality in Africa today is that the government, through the taxation and the provision that goes with the information technology trade, is going counter what the industry is asking. Can you maybe comment in terms of the level of taxation that can be accepted to not to impede the trade in digital products? Yeah, that's really my question or comment, because I would really want also then in terms of recommendation to encourage African governments beyond putting together the legal framework to ensure that the taxation of digital products does not undermine the process to digitalization on the continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. And I feel that this panel and me in person is not competent to deal with this particular question. This is a policy matter to be dealt with at the local level. I don't know whether any of my panelists would like to deal with it. I have no issues. Or otherwise, I definitely feel that we are discussing a subject other than this. So maybe at appropriate time we will have another discussion on this one, maybe a panel which talks in terms of taxation and other issues related to that. Any other question? Yes, Eva. Go ahead.
I'm Eva from Dagang, Malaysia. Actually, no question, but I just want to share an experience on the PKI implementation for single window. In one of the ASEAN countries has implemented and also has been enacted a law for the evident laws that NSW document that is signed with the PKI signature will be presented as a proof in the court. They face challenges in the implementation is that because the PKI implementation, they need to have the public key and private key to sign a document, and there's a validity of 2 years. And the proof, they have to keep it as a proof for as long as the court define the period. So all the users need to have to back up their private and public key in case of court case in the future that can verify the signed document. So this is one of the challenges. So when just for the audience, if you want to implement PKI signature for such kind of implementation, so users need to be educated and aware of the procedures to back up their key in order to be validated as a proof in the court in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have raised a very pertinent question. The answer to this I would try to add, though we have a cybersecurity expert on our panel. But I can assure you that the implementation of PKI in different jurisdictions are different. And that's the reason that we said there should be a harmonization of such initiatives which conforms to any standards that there. You said 2 years it is to be maintained. 2 years as your legal framework in your country perhaps mandates that it should be maintained for 2 years. In another country you will find they say it is 5 years. Because many countries say what kind of document is to be stored and maintained for legal validity depends on how government perceives a particular document to be maintained through for how many years. And for your PKI certificate is to be maintained for 2 years is your own country's requirement. In some other jurisdiction it may be 3 years or 5 years, and also depending on what kind of certificates it is, what class of certificate it is. Because you cannot treat everyone with this one. A financial transactions requires a different class of certification in a jurisdiction, and all those things are there. So yes, you have raised a very, very, very valid question, and while doing so, one would like to address this. I have a gentleman who deals with it as a service provider in a jurisdiction, and he is raising his hand to intervene. Okay, carry on, please.
I'm Vijay. Good morning, everyone. I am from India, from eMudra. I am not intervening on the previous question, but I had a question before the time completes, so I thought I will just make the hand there. So my question is to friends from Malaysia and maybe even India. There are legal PKI systems in the countries in Asia, right? In Malaysia, I think MCMC is regulating. In India, there is controller regulating it. But these are more domestically used PKI. I see there are some gaps for these PKI systems to come into cross-border trade ecosystem. So do we see challenges in bridging this, the domestic PKI setup versus the international requirement for PKI to do paperless cross-border trade?
So if you can reserve your comments, and if you are sitting in panel 7, if you are available till that time, so hold on your questions, it will be answered in panel number 7. This is a subject which is being discussed about what you have raised about the mutual recognition of the digital signature or certificates in other jurisdictions. Mutual recognition is a matter of great interest and concern for everyone across the globe. And these international institutions, those who are supporting this here and in other jurisdictions, they have a very high on their agenda to address the mutual recognition which you have just now mentioned. Before I conclude to this question and conclude your question, please just wait for panel 7 to address your concerns. I have a cybersecurity expert. He will definitely say, it was my question, why did you answer? So I'll go to him if he has to add anything to this.
What I want to add is we have a framework related to each technology. And this framework is adopted or normalized by the organization who is standardizing this kind of technology. So, and the adoption of the framework, it depends on the benefits behind for each country. So I think for your question, I think it depends on the country you are living. There is a framework. The framework will be published and adopted based on the conditions in which you are trading in your company, in your domain, and so on. We have the framework of cybersecurity, which has been published already last year for the mobile industry. Another one is under preparation for the cloudification. For the IoT, we are talking about IoT for many years ago, and the standardization and the normalization is updated based on the evolution of this technology. For blockchain, we have the cryptography, and we have a lot of algorithms that are used. So it depends on the scenarios that are used in your industry and your domain. Thank you. I hope I already answered your. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other question? Last question I can take. Yes.
Yes, thank you for everyone. I have a question for my friend from Malaysia about blockchain technology. Using blockchain technology means release services of financial companies. And my second question is how blockchain technology change import-export operation and in general global trade. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. I think I can just recap. The question was actually the adoption of blockchain technology among the financial institutions in Malaysia, correct? Okay. I think a few years ago, there was an initiative that was actually ran by the Central Bank of Malaysia to actually have a consortium. And I think the application was actually for trade finance products. Yeah. As usual, I think it started off with a POC. They had 4 or 5 banks actually enlisted in that particular initiative. However, I think because of the pandemic, the COVID, the whole initiative was actually put off for a while. What I actually gather is that they are trying to restart the initiative in order for it to actually be further accelerated. Yeah. So to answer your question, yes, there are initiatives going on to actually implement blockchain within the trade financial area, but it's actually still at the POC and pilot stage. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all of you for making it very interactive session. Before I conclude, I would like to engage our panelists on one very basic question which I want to ask to all of you. That basically I am seeking one suggestion from all of you in maximum 1 minute time as to tell us as to why disruptive technologies are great enabler for
the providers in the market. Because of we need to be at the global stage. So therefore, by introducing latest technology or adopting new technologies will give us far advantage against others. So in a way, it promotes competitiveness, and then it's good for the industry, for the stakeholders, that you'll be able to enjoy latest technology when it comes to the adopting of blockchain, for example. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll go. I think benefits of cutting-edge technologies or innovative technologies from the next operator perspective, I think we play a balanced role. One of the roles that we have is to actually run the trade platform for the government, NSW for the government, yeah? In that sense, what we want to do is actually we want to provide better services, quality of services to the government as well as to the nation. I think innovative technology will allow us to actually do that and provide that. At the same time, I think from a business perspective, we actually are a going concern, so we do actually have to look at profitability to a certain extent, and we believe that technology would actually allow us to be competitive as well as to provide quality of service, right? I think those two things are quite important to us. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you. To me, it is important to leverage on these disruptive or the latest technologies that are there. It's time to embrace these technologies in building single window in future to be relevant and also resilient in which we have seen during the pandemic, right? And also to provide a highly visible and traceable solution for the traders and also government sector. Yeah, thank you.
So, thank you for the question, Tassin. I cannot remember who showed it, but I really like a slide that shows that trade facilitation and control for the customs, they are in a balance, and how is increasing the volume of foreign trade in the world. There is no other way to keep the control for the society without using this kind of technology. If you want to increase the volume of the commerce that leads to better quality of life for each society, will not be able to have this without using technology to process such a lot of volume and parcels and all of kind of commerce that we are achieving nowadays. That's it.
Thank you, Tassin. I think in terms of how we can use disruptive technology, the key here is to remember that the technology is a tool. It's a tool we use to apply to solve a problem. If I had to give one recommendation, and I engage with government agencies a lot, one of their biggest challenges is, I've got a day job. I have to make sure things work as they're supposed to be working. When do I have time to actually look at these innovative solutions that you're proposing? And the answer is that you're right. You take care of your day job, but always be thinking at the back of your mind and thinking how you can use these technologies to your advantage. And that's where the service providers come in. They've done this. These are new concepts, but they are applied concepts and applied solutions. So use it to your advantage, see where it fits within your organization, and put in the building blocks to get there. Don't implement or don't employ or use technology for the sake of technology. Use it to its advantage, use it to your own application.
Thank you for the question. My view is probably biased as a technologist. I think the whole point of technology is to make human lives and human processes easier, not only in the trade facilitation and other governmental domains, but overall. So I think the only way to overcome fear of technology, my recommendation would be education and capacity building. And don't be afraid of trying out something new. Don't be afraid of failed POCs, as they say. Because without that, I think you will, just pure human effort will not scale. And it's only technology which can help us out. But of course, it has to have the right guardrails in place, and that has been talked about enough. But that's what I would say. Thank you.
Merci. En fait, je vais terminer sur deux statistiques et deux préconisations par rapport à la cybersécurité. Premièrement, une étude révèle que d'ici 2025, 85% des applications d'entreprise vont être migrées vers le cloud. Et l'utilisation ou bien l'adoption de l'intelligence artificielle va atteindre les 86% d'ici 2025. Deuxième statistique, c'est que récemment, en 2021, les pertes liées à la cybercriminalité en Afrique ont été estimées à 4 milliards de dollars. En fait, c'est un chiffre qui est énorme et qui nécessite que la cybersécurité doit être prise en considération dans n'importe quel projet de digitalisation. Et doit être le budget alloué à cet aspect doit être pris en considération par les dirigeants d'entreprises ou bien d'organisations. Les préconisations que j'évoque ici, c'est la première, c'est l'investissement dans l'être humain. C'est assister à la montée des compétences de nos ingénieurs en cybersécurité ou bien en ICT. La deuxième, c'est adopter les standards internationaux dans n'importe quel projet de digitalisation et inclure ceux de la cybersécurité et la protection des données. Maintenant, on a plusieurs standards qui sont déjà adoptés dans tout le monde, dans le monde entier, et qui vont servir à avoir un cyberspace sécurisé et avoir des plateformes ou bien des infrastructures résilientes à toutes. On peut pas dire qu'elles vont être résilientes à 100% ou bien aux cyberattaques, mais imaginez, personne ne peut nier que parfois une simple attaque peut nuire à la réputation d'une organisation et peut mettre en péril toute l'infrastructure de cette organisation. Et vous pouvez imaginer les pertes. Et ça va de même, c'est équivalent à ce que je viens de dire par rapport aux pertes pertes liées à la cybercriminalité en Afrique qui ont été estimées à 4 milliards de dollars. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much to all of you. So the message is loud and clear that while doing your international trade supply chain integration with the technology, you need to carry on and do the following. Number one, don't be scared of the technology. You should try to leverage on all the technologies. Those who do their processes with technology infusion will move forward, rest will be behind that. Number one. Number two, while doing this, you need to ensure that you not only do infusion of the technology, but also ensure that you do process simplification, data harmonization, conforming to international standards. If you don't do it, then that you will not derive the benefit which are there. But more and more technology infusion calls for you addressing basic requirements of addressing cyber security, eliminate fear in the mind of the trade and industry that the electronic document is as secure as a paper-based document. I would always argue and say that it is more secure than a paper-based document, and that you should be able to do it provided you do hand-holding with private sector and public sector. As my co-panelist has said, that there is a great role for education and awareness that need to be going parallel to your doing electronification of your processes. So if you follow all these aspects clearly, then perhaps you are the winner. Here on these notes, I would like to conclude the discussion here, and it would be appropriate for me to request you to give a big hand to all the panelists that they have done very good job.
Je vous prie de libérer la scène, s'il vous plaît, pour qu'on passe immédiatement au panel prévu pour cette matinée. J'invite les panélistes à monter sur scène. Merci infiniment. Le panel qui est prévu pour aujourd'hui, j'invite les panélistes, le modérateur, donc à monter sur scène. Mesdames et messieurs, j'invite le panel qui suit à monter sur scène pour commencer la séance prévue pour cette matinée. Monsieur le modérateur, je vous laisse inviter vos intervenants. Est-ce que tous les panélistes nous ont rejoints sur scène? Merci de votre compréhension. Est-ce que M. Tahsin Ahmed Khan, ah, vous êtes là, parfait.
Il nous manque un. Fini, tu peux commencer. On va patienter 1 minute, le temps de... Bon. Très bien. Bonjour, bonjour tout le monde. Je vais commencer par me présenter. Je m'appelle Tariq Maouni et je suis au sein de l'Agence nationale des ports en charge des questions d'organisation, de système d'information. Je suis très heureux d'être ici avec vous pour ce panel qui va être, j'espère, aussi passionnant que tous les autres panels qu'il y a eu jusqu'à présent au sein de cette magnifique conférence internationale des guichets uniques. Et le sujet d'aujourd'hui va porter sur les ports intelligents du futur, défis et opportunités pour les pays enclavés. Alors, on vient de terminer un panel sur l'apport des technologies et je pense qu'effectivement, les technologies, c'est un levier extraordinaire pour pouvoir concrétiser et relever ces défis. On a vu à quel point cette question de l'appropriation des technologies pouvait apporter beaucoup et notre illustre expert panéliste, Monsieur Khan, qui fait partie d'ailleurs de ce panel et je voudrais le remercier de participer de nouveau avec nous, nous a expliqué à quel point il ne fallait pas avoir peur de la technologie, elle est à notre disposition, nous pouvons absolument l'utiliser de façon, on va dire, la plus intensive possible, avec, bien sûr, quelques précautions qui ont été exposées tout à l'heure, la cybersécurité, etc., tout ce qui est protection des données, qui mérite d'être, je dirais, prise en considération. Maintenant, est-ce que c'est suffisant la technologie ? Probablement pas. Et c'est un petit peu peut-être le sujet de ce panel d'aujourd'hui, les ports intelligents du futur. Comment arriver à construire des ports intelligents, et en particulier pour les pays qui sont enclavés. Parce que pour les pays qui sont enclavés, c'est encore plus difficile. Tout simplement parce qu'ils n'ont pas accès direct à la mer et au transport maritime, et ils dépendent d'autres pays, d'autres zones géographiques. Et ce qui fait qu'une question se pose, c'est comment pouvoir avoir accès aux services de transport, avoir accès à l'acheminement, et c'est un petit peu le sujet de ce panel. C'est comment offrir des solutions ou imaginer des solutions sur les pays enclavés. Quel type de solutions? Alors, j'ai le plaisir d'avoir avec nous un panel vraiment exceptionnel, avec différentes sensibilités de différents pays. Donc ça aussi, c'est toute je dirais, l'intérêt de cette conférence internationale, c'est qu'on arrive à partager des expériences entre différents pays. Donc j'aurai avec moi dans le panel Monsieur Jean-Marie Kofi, secrétaire général de l'Association des ports d'Afrique de l'Ouest et du Centre. Donc merci beaucoup Jean-Marie pour votre participation à ce panel. Et les pays africains sont particulièrement concernés par la question de la coopération entre les pays de cette région et comment traiter la question des ports enclavés. Nous aurons aussi avec nous Monsieur Ahmed Tahsin Khan, un expert de UNCFACT qui vient de l'Inde et qui a une expérience vraiment fantastique sur la question de la facilitation des process dans le monde, qui a dirigé des très grands projets nationaux et internationaux dans ce domaine, qui est membre du réseau des Nations Unies sur le commerce et le transport, et qui a travaillé sur des projets aussi de garantie de transactions transfrontalières, de signature électronique numérique. Et en fait, ce qui est intéressant dans la participation de monsieur Khan, c'est qu'il comprend à la fois la technologie, mais aussi la nécessité d'accompagner cette technologie avec tout un cadre réglementaire, le cadre processus réglementaire au niveau international. L'UNCFACT a un rôle très important à jouer dans ces questions. Il joue un rôle très important et tous les pays pourront bénéficier de cette connaissance, de cette normalisation pour pouvoir permettre des échanges transfrontaliers en toute sécurité et en toute fluidité. On aura vraiment beaucoup de plaisir à écouter M. Khan. Alors, nous avons aussi avec nous un businessman qui vient des Pays-Bas, M. Marc de Keyser. Je remercie beaucoup M. de Keyser de participer à ce panel. Alors, Marc de Keyser, c'est un serial entrepreneur qui a travaillé sur... Alors on peut se dire, mais pourquoi un serial entrepreneur? Parce qu'en fait, quelque part, il faut trouver des solutions à un moment donné, des solutions pratiques, pragmatiques. Et il va nous parler un peu de ces expériences qu'il a eues avec Nixport en particulier et les plateformes collaboratives qui permettent de faciliter les transactions transfrontalières. Donc Nixport, ce sera intéressant de connaître le retour d'expérience de M. Marc de Keyser. Et j'aurai aussi le plaisir d'avoir avec nous M. Philippe Guillaumet. Merci Philippe d'être avec nous. Secrétaire général de l'association Medport Association des ports de Méditerranée, et qui est aussi en charge de la coopération au sein du port de Marseille, des relations institutionnelles, donc qui ont développé un réseau extrêmement intéressant de coopération au sein de la Méditerranée. Et ça aussi, c'est une chance qu'on ait avec nous, Philippe, parce que la coopération, pour pouvoir résoudre le problème des pays enclavés, la question de la coopération est vraiment essentielle. Il va nous dire quelques mots sur les pistes de solutions, des expériences qu'il a pu découvrir avec plus que 20 pays qui font partie de la Medport Association. Donc c'est impressionnant. Et enfin, nous aurons également M. Baba Tal, président des acteurs portuaires au Sénégal, et qui fédère la communauté des acteurs du Sénégal. Et ça, c'est aussi intéressant parce que on a vu d'ailleurs au travers de cette conférence, c'est qu'il y a de multiples acteurs au sein de la communauté portuaire et il faut arriver à se coordonner. Et ces associations qui jouent ce rôle de fédérateur de coopération, eh bien, elles permettent de faciliter les choses et de créer des ponts avec d'autres pays. C'est ça qu'on va découvrir ensemble. Bon. En tout cas, merci à tous nos valeureux panélistes. Je serai ravi d'animer cette session. Et merci aussi à l'auditoire. On aura l'occasion de répondre à vos questions aussi à la fin de cette session. Pour commencer, je voudrais proposer peut-être à chacun de dire un mot sur son parcours et comme sa sensibilité par rapport à ce sujet des pays enclavés pour pouvoir lancer la discussion. En commençant par M. Jean-Marie Kofi, Association des ports d'Afrique de l'Ouest et du Centre.
Merci M. Tariq. Merci aux organisateurs et aux pays hôtes de nous avoir conviés donc à cette conférence que nous avons suivie depuis près de 3 jours maintenant. Oui, vous avez invité donc l'association de gestion des ports de l'Afrique de l'Ouest et du Centre, qui comporte 20 pays et 24 ports, et les ports, donc, ce sont des ports maritimes qui interagissent donc avec leur hinterland, parce qu'ils auront compris que le développement de l'hinterland est profitable à l'Afrique et à notre zone économique, tant sur le plan économique, tant sur le plan social, sur le plan environnemental. Et donc, il est important de faire en sorte que ces pays ne se sentent pas donc lésés. Et donc, les autorités portuaires qui tiennent donc le lead de nos façades maritimes essaient d'interagir avec eux. Et pour le faire, parce qu'ils ont compris que le développement de l'interland, donc d'un pays enclavé, procède tout simplement de la dynamique des façades de pays à façade maritime. Pays à façade maritime, et donc il est crucial de donner donc les outils et de faire en sorte de fluidifier donc le trafic. C'est un peu l'enjeu principal et je pense que aussi c'est ce qu'il faut noter et en lien donc avec la thématique qui est à traiter donc aujourd'hui, il faut dire que l'un des outils qu'il faut utiliser pour cette fluidification, c'est pratiquement le smart port. Et le smart port, il procède aussi de la digitalisation et notre association a pris à bras le corps cette problématique et nous essayons de traiter la question au sein pratiquement de notre association avec des intelligences regroupées au sein des comités techniques. Là, il y a juste une semaine, nous avons discuté des questions de la donnée, des questions de l'harmonisation des statistiques. Je pense que c'est un prérequis réel pour la digitalisation et pour stratifier, gérer donc toutes les stratégies, de sorte à ce que la facilitation du commerce soit donc quelque chose qui ne soit pas un vain mot, qui soit donc appliqué un peu dans notre zone économique. Et donc, voilà en gros ce que je peux dire en propos introductifs avant de rentrer pratiquement dans le vif du sujet, tout en vous laissant entendre que s'il est décrit comme nous le faisons maintenant, il y a non seulement des prérequis, il y a des avancées, il y a aussi des freins que nous essayerons tout simplement d'évoquer dans les propos après les autres.
Merci. Merci beaucoup Jean-Marie. Je vous propose de donner la parole à Monsieur Tahsin Ahmed Khan pour dire un mot court, bref, sur sa vision de la question de défis et opportunités pour les pays enclavés. Monsieur Khan, could you please tell us some words about the challenge and opportunity for countries that are landlocked? Mr. Khan.
Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to be here. I have prepared a very short presentation.
Okay.
And would you like this to be run here at this time, or
maybe you can. Sure. Présentation. Ouais. Okay. That's good. Role of mutual recognition.
Yes. This is a story about landlocked countries in a sub-region of the Asia Pacific from where I come. Okay. My country is India, and we are surrounded by two landlocked countries, Nepal and Bhutan. Those who share border with us and also utilize the facility of thank you very much. Utilize the facility of Indian ports for transacting their business, import and export. This was an study initiated by UNSCAP, United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, and Asian Development Bank some time back. We tried to understand the bottlenecks between this and we selected few routes, and we selected few commodities, and we selected these 4 countries which are part of this initiative. If you see here, you find that there are 3 corridors which we studied as part of this study, which basically touches upon see it properly. So this is regarding 3 corridors and the details are there, so I don't want to repeat it for the sake of time constraints. That this is basically around India, the Nepal, Bangladesh and Bhutan. And the distance, you can see that in one corridor, the total distance is 1,152 kilometers, on which the transit distance is 54 kilometers, and so on. So I don't want to go on this one. And I don't want to deal with the findings of this basic report because it would be too much in whatever time I have at my disposal. So let us come to, but I am briefly giving you the corridors geography which is available here, which is also a part of the presentation which I have shared with the Secretariat here. The other corridor is between Bhutan and Bangladesh. And the third one is Kathmandu to Calcutta. Kathmandu is the capital of Nepal, and they use the Calcutta as the port, Indian port of Calcutta and Haldia, which they use. I am only one finding of this report I am sharing with you. It says that India is prepared in terms of the technology infusion and the regulatory framework for transacting business with its two neighbors, those who are landlocked. So we are trying to understand that in the paper-based environment, all the document has to flow from Kathmandu, say in case of Nepal, to Indian port of Calcutta, which happens to be 1,152 kilometers away, and that comes by courier. And many a times the import and import consignment arrives, the document is not there because the document has to be there for clearance. So the findings was that if the customs formation and the regulatory framework in Nepal is at fairly good level of development. And in India, the customs automation in a single window environment exists, and it also has a framework that they can transact with their neighbors electronically. Not only electronically, but also in a secure environment because of the fact that the secure environment comes from a public key infrastructure or digital signature or electronic signature framework which is available in India, Bangladesh, Nepal. These three places, this technological advancement exists to the extent that they can exchange information electronically. The only place, Bhutan, where this is not available, they have no provisions for secure transactions to be done with its neighbor, and also they don't have a method of electronic payment there. So what suggestions were made that instead of this document flowing from these four countries to the other one, it should come in electronically, digitally signed. So what is the prerequisite for doing this is what is we are trying to understand. We try to understand that there are importance of doing electronic transactions with others, provided you have mutual recognition framework in place. And that is something which was not there. So we said, okay, we sign an MOU saying that we will respect each other's electronically signed document, provided the electronic signing facility provides the kind of comfort that is expected in the other jurisdictions as per the legislation available there. And we also tried to argue with them that there is a mutual recognition agreement exists in the ASEAN initiative, which you have heard in the previous panel 6. You have also heard in the previous panel 6 that there is ASEAN gives strength from government-to-government arrangement of mutual recognition, but PA is a totally private initiative in which they respect each other's electronic document digitally signed, and that exists in Asia Pacific. There is a framework of this in EU and also in European Economic Union that mutually recognize each other's signature. So we said similar type of arrangements can be worked out, and that can become a reality. And that's the reason that we said to all of them that today the document which comes by courier takes 10 to 15 days time covering this terrain. And if electronically you accept it, then from 15 days it comes to only 1 day. The same day it gets transmitted, provided you accept mutual, we do a mutual recognition agreement for this to happen. And that's the reason we tried to do it with 3 of them. We not only tried to do it with 3 of them, but we wrote at the government level from the regulator to regulator of other countries saying that we want to do a mutual recognition with all of you to see that we transact the business electronically. But it's a very difficult exercise that a country reaches out to every other country to do this, because this they will not do anything other than doing a mutual recognition agreement. So that's the reason that we thought that there is a case for us to go to international institutions like UNCFACT or UNISCAP or UNNEX. These are the institutions that those who are facilitating electronic transactions in the region of their interest, though UNCFACT has a global remit that they can provide umbrella provisions at the global level. And that's why this was built into the initiatives of these 3 institutions I have mentioned, that you provide an umbrella provisions that those who sign the agreement, then that is applicable to every other country, that those who sign it. And that is what is the importance of doing a mutual recognition agreement, that it should happen that way. And that is the message I want to carry and convey here, that AAEC has initiated that within the member states that this agreement should happen, and it should not only limit to the membership of AAEC, but it should go beyond that in the entire Africa as well as with all other your member states. So it's in the best interest of you to for somebody to participate in this in these programs of mutual recognition, and that I benefit. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Khan. You have mentioned the importance of mutual recognition, and you are perfectly right. Nous sommes tout à fait convaincus que la reconnaissance mutuelle des formalités électroniques entre les pays constitue un enjeu majeur pour la facilitation des procédures et la facilitation du transit des marchandises, en particulier entre les pays enclavés, mais aussi avec les pays qui ne sont pas forcément enclavés. Et je crois que nous serons ravis de coopérer sur ces questions pour pouvoir adopter les mêmes normes internationales qui existent dans les zones géographiques d'Asie, pour pouvoir les adopter ici en Afrique aussi. Je pense que dans les zones d'Asie, ils ont probablement une certaine avance, une avance pas uniquement technologique, mais probablement une avance en termes de maturité de la coopération régionale. Et je crois qu'on a beaucoup d'avantages à s'inspirer de ce qui a été fait dans cette région d'ASEAN. Il y a certainement des questions d'accords politiques qui se posent derrière, mais je pense qu'il y a matière à essayer de s'approcher de cette reconnaissance mutuelle qui est au service de nos entreprises. Je pense que vous avez certainement entendu au cours de cette conférence les difficultés que rencontrent les entreprises pour réaliser leurs transactions à l'international. Et quand elles arrivent dans le pays de destination, eh bien, les formalités parfois sont répétitives. Il faut refaire toutes les formalités parce que les formalités du pays de départ ne sont pas acceptées ou reconnues comme telles dans le pays de destination. Bon, en tout cas, Monsieur Khan, vraiment merci beaucoup pour votre éclairage. C'était très intéressant et on espère coopérer encore davantage là-dessus. Alors, pour continuer notre tour de table, je propose de donner la parole à Monsieur Marc de Keyser et pour nous dire quelques mots sur peut-être les pistes de solutions qui pourraient exister pour aller vers les ports intelligents, pour relever les défis dont on vient de parler. Monsieur Keyser, you have the floor. Vous avez la parole.
Good morning. Thank you very much. I would like to start with saying that the industry of smart ports today is around a value of $1.9 billion. And market research has shown that by 2027, which is in 5 years' time, they expect the value of the market to be $5.7 billion, which is double of it in 5 years' time. I think one of the things about smart ports and the hinterland, so the landlocked lands, is that the sea ports need to become smarter. The vessels have become bigger, larger, more containers have been arriving at these ports, and they need to be moved inland and to the countries behind it faster as well. And smart ports is about moving goods faster, more efficient. But moving goods faster and more efficient requires moving data faster and more efficient as well. And in the Port of Antwerp, where I'm from, Belgium, we have a data network, data sharing network, which is Nexport, and I'm working for Nexport. And it's a neutral data sharing platform. It's actually been built by industry partners in 2016, and Port has taken a share of it larger and larger over the years because it needs to be sustainable. And it's important as well to create digital twins, to connect people with each other, but digital twins are the way that seaports can become smarter. A digital twin will allow you to mask your physical port in a digital way. Real-time data, real-time insights, real-time sharing. Secondly, you can do analysis on it. You can do analysis on historical data from your digital twins and predict what is going to happen in the next few days. Digital twins actually are constructed by using cameras. They see where vessels are passing. They're more accurate than people sitting on the side of the river and seeing and telling everybody else the ship has passed. Smart noses, which we are calling eye noses, and particularly they're used in pollution area. I think the sustainability of ports, the green challenges they have is very important and will be a driver to facilitate speeding up a number of the implementations. Digital identities, people in the port, working in the port, people traveling to the port to collect containers and so on is very important because security will be related to it. And then we also have got drones, automatic piloted drones, which are used for inspection of the infrastructure. And next to that, you've got a number of smart devices like IoT devices which measure situations there. I think what I would like to do is to use 2 examples of how the Port of Antwerp has used the digital twins and technology in order to become a smart port and to facilitate goods moving faster into countries like Germany, France, Switzerland, and so on. And then I would like to explore a little bit more about the drivers for smart ports and the challenges smart ports will see. So these are the 3 areas where I will talk in the next few minutes about. The example I would like to give is the first one, which is called certified pickup in the Port of Antwerp. Certified pickup, I was part of the solution architecture of that one, is basically done in order to make sure that the container at the port is picked up by the right truck driver. Why? Because there is quite a lot of cocaine smuggling going to the Port of Antwerp and the Port of Rotterdam. And of course, these organizations trying to collect these containers from the terminals rather than having the original or the expected driver to come and collect it. The idea was, and it's been implemented for a number of years now, is to get digital certification that the driver which will show up at the port is actually the driver which has been contracted to come and collect the container. Now that's good, but it's turned out to be that this is more not only a security solution, but also a full visibility on the import flow. So by getting the data from the ocean carriers to whom they release the container, at what time they have concluded that, to share that with the terminals, to share that with customs, to share that with the forwarders, and in the end, pass all these digital rights onto the transporter, you get a green light. And everybody can actually collect these green lights and see when these actions have been happening. So they can organize their import process much faster and easier, even in countries which are not directly connected to the sea. The second example, which is actually working as well in the Port of Antwerp and basically in Belgium, is automatic sailing barges. So autonomous sailing barges, I should say. There is nobody on board. Everything is done, controlled from a central control room, or multiple control rooms, but nobody's on board. And the challenge we faced there was basically legislation, because insurance companies would say, okay, fine, you can sail that barge, but if there's no legal way, how can we insure the voyage of that barge? So the first challenge was to get legislation into place, and it took us less than a year, which is amazing. We thought it would take a few years, but it actually was less than a year. And the second thing was the availability of 5G. And I think for smart ports, 5G is one of the things you can't do without. Your smart devices need to be connected. If you want to steer barges, you need a 5G network to do that. So these are two examples where we can move goods faster, we can get an insight faster by moving data and sharing data faster as well. I think the drivers for a smart port are, of course, the digitalization, making data available, but also the energy transition. And I think the energy transition is going to push this faster and faster. And the other thing is mobility. A lot of ports are congested. And to make mobility better working around the ports, we need to organize it better as well. And that will be by showing when containers are available, when goods are available, so we can organize the transport just in time. I think the challenges we face for smart ports are addressed in our areas in getting an ecosystem around the port. In Belgium, we have something which is called the Beacon. It's a place where startups are gathered together and where they can work together. And basically, they can use the port as an industrial test environment. Because private sector and startups are moving faster than public sector. And to allow them to test their ideas into an industrial or port environment will move things faster as well. Time to market is an important thing as well. And we've seen, for example, in the car industry, that they are not able to deliver cars in the next 1.5 years, just because of chip shortage. So time to market is going to be very important and driver for smart ports as well. Legislation, as I said, for example, the autonomous barge operation in Belgium, you need legislation in order to be able to do a number of things. And the last thing I would mention is security. And one of the examples on security is that IoT devices which have been used to have automatic driving straddle carriers, we call them elephants because they're so large and they pick up the containers and they look like elephants, they need to be secure as well. And during a test of one of the terminal operators, they found out that a very well-positioned laser beam actually crashed the whole system. So can you imagine that your port terminal is automated with IoT devices on these straddle carriers, and a single thing like a laser beam is basically stopping your operation? Not the IoT supplier, not the port terminal were aware of this vulnerability. So they've discovered it, of course, and they've taken measures in order to ensure that there's a security measure in place that can't make these things happen. So with these things, I hope I have given you an insight about what we believe that smart ports can do for the landlocked countries, and what are the drivers and the challenges for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark, for your insights, your vision about smart ports, your very interesting solution that you have mentioned, and some words are quite new, I would say, but needs to understand what's. On a besoin de. Il y a des mots un petit peu nouveaux qui ont été évoqués par Monsieur Marc de Keyser et qui constituent des opportunités en termes de facilitation, de technologie, qu'il faut qu'on commence à se familiariser, je pense, au sein des ports d'Afrique et d'ailleurs. Vous avez cité en particulier le Digital Twin. Ça fait un petit peu Zama, Digital Twin. C'est un peu bizarre, hein? But it seems that il semblerait bien que ce soit une solution très intéressante pour pouvoir piloter un port et savoir où se trouvent les marchandises, où se trouvent les... C'est un jumeau numérique, si on devait essayer de traduire le terme. Maintenant, ça demande bien sûr toute une vision pour pouvoir construire ce genre de choses. Il y a un autre sujet dont vous avez parlé, Monsieur de Keyser, et dont d'ailleurs a parlé aussi Monsieur Kahn, c'est la Digital Identity and Electronic Signature, Mutual Recognition of Identity, l'identité digitale et la reconnaissance mutuelle de cette identité pour pouvoir instaurer une véritable confiance dans les relations qui s'instaurent au sein de la chaîne du trade facilitation. Et ça, je crois que ça va être aussi un des défis de nos ports et de nos régions pour pouvoir intégrer cette identité digitale nationale et reconnue au niveau international. Ça, c'est un petit peu un rêve. C'est je suis un entrepreneur marocain, j'ai une identité bien identifiée au Maroc, c'est vrai, mais est-ce que je suis reconnu au Sénégal, au Burkina Faso, en Côte d'Ivoire, en France, aux États-Unis? Pas forcément. Et bon, c'est un sujet dont on pourra reparler, mais c'est vrai qu'il y a quelque chose dont on a besoin. Vous avez parlé beaucoup d'autres technologies aussi très avancées qu'il faut qu'on arrive à expérimenter déjà, et puis aussi exploiter, comme par exemple vous avez cité les drones. Alors il se trouve que hier il y avait le Smart Port Challenge organisé par l'ANP Portnet le Maroc, et il y avait parmi les gagnants un drone intelligent avec un conteneur et un drone marin, et c'était assez amusant. Et je crois au-delà du fait que c'est amusant, je pense que c'est une opportunité extraordinaire pour pouvoir aussi rendre les ports plus simples, pour pouvoir faire des opérations qu'on ne pourrait pas faire de façon classique. Les drones, les technologies des objets connectés aussi, c'est des choses aussi qui peuvent être très utiles et qu'on commence à voir dans nos ports. Donc tout ça permet d'aller vers le smart port. Vous avez cité d'autres choses, la full visibility, ça aussi c'est un sujet qui a été aussi discuté hier au cours du challenge. Comment donner une visibilité la plus précise pour que l'entreprise qui suit sa marchandise puisse savoir à tout moment où elle se trouve et pouvoir l'accompagner et agir au meilleur moment. Bref, c'est des idées importantes qui permettront aux entrepreneurs de trouver des solutions pour leurs acheminements. Alors, en tout cas, merci beaucoup Marc de Keyser. D'ailleurs, je précise, c'est de Belgique, pas de Pays-Bas. Je suis une erreur, sorry for that mistake. Et du port d'Anvers aussi. Donc, toute l'expérience du port d'Anvers, qui est un port centenaire, millénaire, qui a une histoire et une expertise incroyable. Donc, merci Marc. Thank you very much. Maybe oui.
Yeah, I'd like to add one thing about the drones, because it was it's a specific topic. I don't think we need to look at very fancy solutions. At first, what we're using the drones for example, is just to control if there's something wrong with the infrastructure. A quay, for example. Nowadays, or in the previous days, people had to do it. They had to drive it, and before they've done the full port, it takes time. And when drones are controlling the infrastructure and see if something is missing or something is broken, you can fix it faster. And one of the problems of a port is when you've got downtime, it has an impact on all the countries and all the transports which is happening behind. So just easily facilitating viewing if the infrastructure is okay by drones is already a big step in ensuring that you move goods faster or you don't have an impact in your supply chain.
Excellent, excellent. Very amazing, amazing. Thank you very much, Mark. Alors je propose maintenant d'écouter notre ami Philippe Guillaumet, qui est, comme je disais tout à l'heure, secrétaire général de l'association Medport, Port des Méditerranées, qui fait un travail formidable en Méditerranée pour connecter tous les ports et trouver des solutions pour faciliter la communication, la coopération sur beaucoup de sujets. Je remercie Philippe pour sa présence et je propose de...
Peut-être, je n'ai pas de présentation. Bonjour à tous, mais je n'arrive pas à tenir en place et assis quand je parle à une audience. Donc merci Tariq pour l'invitation, merci aux organisateurs pour nous donner l'opportunité à nous et à travers moi la Medport Association de s'exprimer dans cette formidable conférence que je n'avais pas eu le plaisir de visiter malheureusement depuis quelques années, et c'est avec un grand plaisir que je reviens et que je revois mes amis de Portnet et de l'ANP. Donc merci beaucoup pour cette invitation. Alors on arrive quasiment tout à la fin, je crois, des 3 jours, donc ça va être difficile de dire quelque chose d'intéressant pour vous, public, qui avez entendu, je sais, moult choses depuis le début de cette conférence. Alors j'avais préparé quelque chose de technique, et puis au fur et à mesure qu'on arrive au moment où on parle, maintenant je me dis que tout a sûrement été dit. Alors je voulais partager peut-être quelques réflexions plutôt avec vous sur ce sujet. Il y a 2 jours, je crois, vous avez vu qu'on a réussi, nous les humains, à aller toucher un astéroïde à 10 millions des millions et des millions de kilomètres avec une fusée. Un truc fou, quoi, quand même. Une fusée qui avait un astéroïde qui était tout petit. Et puis, on aurait encore des problèmes pour aller atteindre des pays enclavés. C'est quand même incroyable. Comme quoi, quand on veut vraiment collaborer, coopérer, etc., quand il y a un cadre stable et institutionnel sur plusieurs années, on arrive à aller atteindre des distances incroyables et toucher des points très loin. Donc, pourquoi ne pas arriver à aller toucher des pays enclavés? Nos amis ici du continent subsaharien africain le savent. Alors, moi, c'est l'interrogation. Après, on a réfléchi, on a discuté, et puis on s'est dit, il reste encore des pays enclavés qui ont une véritable importance dans le développement économique mondial, dans la stabilité politique mondiale. Donc, c'est un vrai enjeu. Pour revenir au sujet du jour, challenge et opportunité. Il y a même la présentation que j'avais préparée, mais il n'y a pas forcément besoin. Ça, c'était l'astéroïde. Et puis ça, c'était l'importance que les Nations Unies prêtent aux pays enclavés. Donc, l'idée, pour revenir au sujet du jour, c'est qu'est-ce que le SmartPort peut nous apporter au final à tous pour aller aider le développement économique de ces pays enclavés, pour aller atteindre ces pays enclavés, pour aider le développement des corridors, on en a parlé, jusqu'à ces pays enclavés. Je crois que dans la définition même du SmartPort, on a les réponses. Un SmartPort, c'est un port qui va mettre en réseau. Il va mettre en réseau les hommes, il va mettre en réseau les institutions, il va mettre en réseau les corridors, les infrastructures. Il met en réseau les choses et il rend intelligent les décisions qui sont prises par les acteurs du transport maritime international. C'est ça un SmartPort. Donc, M. Kofi l'a dit, au départ, il n'y a peut-être que de la digitalisation, mais ça va beaucoup plus loin. Et c'est pour ça qu'en allant beaucoup plus loin, c'est peut-être une opportunité, effectivement, pour les pays enclavés, de se développer. Alors, M. Marc a expliqué le cas d'Anvers. On n'est pas dans des pays enclavés, on a des corridors, on va sur de l'Interland. C'est un peu pareil en Méditerranée. On a finalement de l'Interland, mais c'est la même problématique. C'est comment on crée finalement ce réseau qui nous permet d'aller plus loin que les ports maritimes, que le simple Interland. C'est ça l'idée du SmartPort. Et le rôle des autorités portuaires est essentiel à ce moment-là. Parce que l'autorité portuaire est au centre de tout ce réseau, de tous les acteurs, des infrastructures. Elle gère ce nœud, ce nexus logistique. Mais c'est un nœud qui n'en est pas un, qui doit être fluide. Donc les autorités portuaires que nous représentons, nous au sein de la Medport Association, sont tous impliqués dans ce mouvement-là pour essayer de créer encore plus de réseaux qui nous permettront d'atteindre, bien sûr, les hinterlands intérieurs, d'atteindre des ports secs, d'atteindre des inland ports, etc., etc. Alors, en Méditerranée, excusez, on sait faire ça depuis très longtemps, c'est vrai. Hein? Alors là, c'est l'Empire romain, mais il y en a eu d'autres. Mais on a des relations qui sont très, très anciennes. Et depuis très longtemps, on fait ça. Alors, on a continué à le faire. L'ANP le fait. On l'a vu avec le Smart Port Challenge. On le voit avec nos amis de Tanger, Algeciras, Barcelone. Tous nos membres sont très impliqués, Marseille, bien sûr, dans le développement des Smart Ports. Évidemment. Pourquoi? Parce qu'à la fin, ce qu'on va essayer de faire, je vais reprendre ici, et je crois que l'image que vous avez prise là, comme fond, comme background des slides, est parfaite. Cette porte-là, sur l'Interland, c'est exactement ça. Les ports ne sont plus une simple interface. Ils ne sont plus une simple interface pour aller chercher de la marchandise juste autour. Non, ils s'ouvrent sur un espace. Et ils vont créer des relations avec les ports intérieurs, avec les pays enclavés. C'est là où il y a de l'opportunité. Le développement économique, tel que le monde est fait aujourd'hui, passe par le commerce international. Les smart ports vont permettre de donner une possibilité aux pays enclavés, aux hinterlands lointains, de connecter le commerce international. C'est là où ça va devenir évidemment le plus intéressant. Et donc je crois fermement que, et nous croyons au sein de la de la Medport Association, que le rôle, encore une fois, des ports est essentiel, des autorités portuaires. Nous essayons, au sein de chaque communauté portuaire, je crois que notre ami représentant du Sénégal va en parler, au sein de chaque autorité, de communauté portuaire, nous créons ces relations. Maintenant, nous voulons dépasser cette relation pour aller plus loin, pour devenir encore plus smart. Je vais tout confondre entre les smart et les ports. Mais nous cherchons à développer de la coopération entre les autorités portuaires. Pourquoi? Simplement pour développer des échanges, les fameuses meilleures pratiques, mais c'est tellement important. C'est tellement important. On a très longtemps discuté sur le Smart Port Challenge avec Tariq et nos collègues de Marseille, etc., mais avec d'autres. C'est tellement important d'apprendre de l'autre. On ira, j'en suis sûr, un jour sur un Smart Port Challenge au niveau méditerranéen. On travaille dessus et j'espère qu'on va y arriver dans les mois qui arrivent à créer cette chose-là au niveau méditerranéen. On travaille aussi avec l'Association des ports d'Afrique de l'Ouest et du Centre pour une meilleure collaboration, pour un échange de meilleures pratiques. Ça sert. La coopération va servir. Elle ne nuit pas à la compétitivité de chacun. Au contraire, elle la renforce. Donc c'est pour ça qu'on va croire encore et on va continuer à développer nos échanges au sein de la Medport Association qui représente aujourd'hui plus de 70% du trafic en Méditerranée. Voilà, j'en ai fini parce que je pense que vous en avez eu assez de présentations trop longues, en tout cas très intéressantes, mais certainement maintenant ça fait long au bout de 3 jours. Donc je vous remercie. N'hésitez pas si vous avez besoin de me contacter, puis je suis prêt à répondre à toutes les questions que Tariq voudra bien me poser, évidemment. Merci. Alors, ça, c'est...
Merci Philippe, c'était vraiment très intéressant ce que tu nous as dit. Et finalement, ça recentre le débat. Ça recentre, parce que c'est quoi vraiment le sujet dont on parle? Qu'est-ce qui va nous permettre de relever ces défis? Moi, je partage tout à fait l'idée de Philippe, c'est la coopération régionale, la coopération internationale qui va permettre de partager un certain nombre d'idées, un certain nombre de concepts qui vont permettre d'aller plus rapidement et mettre en place des solutions communautaires, des solutions. On le fait au Maroc déjà depuis plusieurs années et dans d'autres pays aussi, dans les régions Afrique, en Méditerranée. La coopération permet d'obtenir d'excellents résultats. Au niveau international également, Monsieur Khan en a parlé, les normes et standards, c'est très utile, c'est un levier extraordinaire. Maintenant, il faut qu'on arrive à diffuser de la connaissance, de l'expérience et comprendre où on peut aller pour aider notre écosystème. Et je crois que c'était Marc qui a parlé d'écosystème. Écosystème, effectivement. Comment créer un écosystème? Un écosystème au Maroc, un écosystème en Méditerranée, un écosystème en Afrique, d'entreprises, d'expertise et tout ça pour pouvoir dynamiser notre commerce. Finalement, c'est un peu ça ce qu'on essaye de faire. Et ça aussi, c'est une des idées que tu as mis en évidence, le rôle des autorités portuaires. Les autorités portuaires, effectivement, elles ont un rôle très intéressant à jouer. elles sont un petit peu au centre d'un jeu de coopération et je pense qu'elles peuvent continuer à jouer ce rôle très actif de fédération, de coordination, d'activation, d'animation au niveau régional, au niveau, on a vu ce qui se fait en Asie, c'est vraiment, ils sont allés très loin dans l'intégration régionale. Je pense que nous aussi, on peut aller loin avec nos amis africains aussi. Et du coup, ça fait une excellente transition. Je vais donner la parole à Monsieur Baba Tall, président de la communauté portuaire du Sénégal. Monsieur Tall, vous avez la parole.
Merci. Merci. Merci, Tariq, le modérateur, de m'avoir donné la parole. Je voudrais remercier et féliciter. Je voudrais remercier et féliciter avant tout les institutions organisatrices de la présente rencontre. Chers panélistes, collègues panélistes, j'éprouve un réel plaisir à prendre part à cette importante conférence internationale sur le développement de nos économies, notamment dans le domaine stratégique, maritime et portuaire. Avant tout, comme vous l'avez dit, Philippe l'a dit tout à l'heure, le rôle de la communauté des acteurs portuaires dans les politiques de développement économique, c'est pour dire qu'au niveau du Sénégal, avec la communauté des acteurs portuaires, que je prise depuis un certain temps, notre mission, c'est une communauté d'abord qui regroupe l'ensemble des acteurs, aussi bien publics que privés, dont l'autorité portuaire, et qui a pour mission de fédérer ces institutions-là pour la compétitivité de nos ports. Et on ne peut pas parler aujourd'hui de compétitivité de nos ports sans parler de digitalisation. C'est pourquoi je pense que depuis 3 jours, nous avons assisté à des thématiques, nous avons partagé des expériences, nous avons beaucoup appris pour faire du guichet unique, de la digitalisation, un levier de développement économique. Je voudrais avant tout apporter ma compréhension de la thématique qui nous est soumise, point port intelligent et futur, du futur, défis et opportunités pour les pays enclavés. En effet, selon moi, les pays enclavés sont ceux qui sont entourés par d'autres pays. Donc, pour dire simple, ce sont des pays qui ont pour frontière celle des autres pays. Voilà. Donc, quant au concept de port intelligent, et Philippe l'a expliqué tout à l'heure, il est important. Ce n'est plus seulement la digitalisation, mais ça va au-delà. Donc, c'est la mise en place de réseaux, des plateformes qui peuvent permettre à l'autorité portière, mais également au gouvernement, de pousser, de faciliter la compétitivité de ces ports-là, mais également aux populations d'accéder facilement au marché, mais également à des produits à faible coût. Récemment, au Sénégal, il y a un conseil présidentiel qui s'est tenu, qui y avait pour sujet comment faciliter la vie chère. Parce qu'aujourd'hui, nous avons constaté que dans plusieurs ports, surtout en Afrique, le coût de passage et le délai de passage constituent un frein à l'atteinte de cet objectif-là. C'est pourquoi nous, au niveau du Sénégal, avec le plan Sénégal émergent, qui est un plan sur l'horizon 2035, il y a plusieurs axes, dont un axe très important qui est de faire du port ou des ports du Sénégal un moteur d'émergence. Et pour cela, il est important ce concept de voir comment on peut digitaliser ces outils-là. Aujourd'hui, le Sénégal peut parler de son expérience avec les pays enclavés parce que nous avons plusieurs corridors, mais le corridor le plus célèbre et le plus important, c'est le corridor Est, qui va du Sénégal jusqu'à Niamey, donc en passant par le Mali et le Burkina Faso. Donc c'est pour dire que tous ces pays-là choisissent le Sénégal qui a une façade maritime de plus de 700 km avec plusieurs ports, dont une bonne partie de ce commerce-là, je peux dire à 70%, passe par le port de Dakar. Donc vous voyez l'importance de ce thème. Et aujourd'hui, on ne peut pas, ce n'est pas parce qu'on est un pays enclavé qu'on n'a pas besoin de guichet unique. D'où l'importance, et quelqu'un l'a dit, je pense que c'est nos amis du Cameroun, qu'il est important d'avoir des guichets uniques interconnectés. Cela faciliterait les choses. Et moi, en tant que chef d'entreprise, je peux donner l'exemple où il m'est arrivé plusieurs fois de faire des expéditions en import comme à l'export, des fruits et légumes et des produits halieutiques, où je suis obligé d'envoyer des convoyeurs à la frontière pour faire des formalités douanières. Alors que si on avait des guichets uniques, performants, interconnectés, à partir d'un pays, on peut attaquer ces systèmes-là et faire les formalités beaucoup plus facilement et beaucoup plus sûr. Donc c'est très important à ce niveau de le souligner. Et au Sénégal, je salue au passage la forte délégation sénégalaise pour montrer l'importance de ce sujet pour le Sénégal, pour deux raisons. La première raison, c'est que nous n'avons pas encore un guichet unique opérationnel à 100%. Ça, c'est un. Et deuxièmement, toute l'économie, une bonne partie de l'économie, une bonne partie, on a l'habitude de le dire, que les pays de l'Interland constituent les premiers clients des ports du Sénégal. Donc, vous voyez l'importance un peu de ce qui nous motive aujourd'hui de venir assister pendant ces 3 jours à cette conférence-là pour apporter des solutions. Au niveau de la communauté des acteurs portiers, je l'ai dit tout à l'heure, il regroupe l'ensemble des acteurs, privés et publics. Et nous sommes allés même plus loin. Pourquoi? Parce qu'aujourd'hui, le Sénégal, avec son expertise, et certains vont se poser la question, pourquoi on n'a pas réussi encore à avoir un guichet unique opérationnel à 100%. C'est une volonté politique et d'où nous, en tant que communauté des acteurs porteurs, de jouer ce rôle de catalyseur pour permettre à l'autorité centrale de prendre la décision et d'aller dans ce sens-là. On ne peut pas parler de Sénégal émergent, on ne peut pas parler de compétitivité des ports sans la digitalisation. On ne peut pas parler également de compétitivité sans l'apport de ces pays enclavés. Et il y a des exemples qu'on peut citer ici, là. Et on est allé plus loin, je le disais tout à l'heure, que la communauté a mis en place une société qui est système d'information communautaire qui regroupe toutes les institutions, aussi bien privées, et toutes les organisations, toutes les associations professionnelles autour d'une société anonyme pour jouer ce rôle de leader pour mettre en place un guichet unique opérationnel à 100%. Voilà quelques idées que je voulais développer avec vous, tout en restant à votre disposition pour répondre à toutes les questions, sans oublier l'exemple que je peux citer. Hein, donc, prenons par exemple l'exemple d'une opération entre le Mali et le Maroc qui a un guichet unique. Le Mali est un pays enclavé qui a 7 frontières, dont 2 qui sont beaucoup plus proches pour prendre le corridor, que ce soit le Sénégal et la Mauritanie. Imaginez que si le Mali avait son guichet unique, le Sénégal son guichet unique, interconnecté avec le guichet unique du Maroc, comment ça faciliterait les choses en termes de sécurité, en termes de compétitivité pour réussir ce pari. Donc voilà des exemples que nous pouvons citer par l'expérience du Sénégal et je suis à votre entière disposition pour compléter. Merci.
Merci. Je vous remercie beaucoup pour cette intervention et je crois que vous avez vraiment mis le focus sur finalement peut-être la vision du futur. On a besoin de ces guichets uniques pour pouvoir interconnecter et atteindre cette reconnaissance mutuelle dont vous aviez parlé, Monsieur Khan, Mutual Recognition of Electronic Formalities, la reconnaissance mutuelle des formalités électroniques entre les pays de la région, entre le Maroc, le Sénégal, le Mali. Voilà, ça c'est un petit peu notre ambition collective. On est très vraiment intéressé par cette question que vous avez posée et la façon dont on pourrait accélérer cette transition vers l'intégration régionale. Je crois qu'il y a aujourd'hui des ingrédients pour pouvoir le faire. Il faut s'appuyer sur nos atouts. On a des guichets uniques qui fonctionnent vraiment très très bien, comme celui de Portnet du Maroc, dont on pourrait s'appuyer dessus. Il y a des plateformes qui sont déjà opérationnelles au Sénégal et au Mali. Il y a peut-être d'autres choses qu'il faut rajouter, je ne sais pas. Et puis voilà, donc il faut qu'on coopère. On revient à un sujet de tout à l'heure que disait Philippe. La coopération, la discussion, trouver le chemin. Chemin, parfois, ce n'est pas un chemin tout droit. C'est un chemin un petit peu à imaginer. Mais dès lors qu'il y a le dialogue, on peut trouver des chemins et même chercher l'appui politique pour pouvoir le concrétiser. Philippe a une intervention.
Oui, si je peux reprendre la parole. Je pense qu'il faut, toujours pareil, hein, pour le sujet de notre session sur les challenges et les opportunités, je pense qu'il y a 4 maîtres mots qu'il faut conserver pour imaginer comment le smart port peut être une opportunité pour les pays enclavés. Et tu insistes dessus, et les différents speakers ont insisté dessus. La stabilité institutionnelle, le framework, le legal framework est très important. On l'a même en Europe, puisqu'on en a parlé pour les barges autonomes entre la Belgique et l'Allemagne. Stabilité institutionnelle légale. Il nous faut de la confiance. La confiance, c'est la reconnaissance mutuelle, connaître les données des uns et des autres. Monsieur Jean-Marie Coffi en a parlé, le travail qui est fait formidable d'harmonisation des connaissances pour qu'on sache de quoi on parle chacun. La fiabilité des infrastructures, à la fois des infrastructures dures, on va dire terrestres, mais aussi des infrastructures électriques, les infrastructures d'information, etc. Et puis le dernier, je crois qu'on en a parlé à la session précédente, mais là aussi, la compétence. Parce que le smart port, c'est beaucoup de compétences, et des nouvelles compétences, surtout en logistique. Des nouvelles compétences qu'il va falloir acquérir. Avec ces 4 mots, on aura certainement réussi à faire à peu près le tour de tous les challenges du smart port qui permettront au final d'être un appui pour le développement de ces pays enclavés. Et encore une fois, il faut insister, mais c'est d'une telle importance en termes politiques et économiques, et puis dans la perspective de la transition écologique, que c'est vraiment un point très très important et essentiel. Et les organisateurs et le comité d'organisation ont bien fait de mettre ce sujet-là au cœur de cette conférence. Merci.
Merci Philippe. Et là, on s'approche de la fin. On va donner un dernier mot à nos panélistes. Et sachant que bientôt, dans quelques minutes, on va arriver aux recommandations de la conférence internationale des guichets uniques. Donc, ce sera intéressant de voir toutes ces idées, comment est-ce qu'elles vont être incluses dans la feuille de route des recommandations de la conférence des guichets uniques, qui, je crois, va nous aider à aller plus loin et à faire converger nos efforts dans une certaine direction. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres interventions qui voudraient peut-être prendre la parole? Le dernier mot. Oui, bien sûr, bien sûr. Vas-y.
Merci, M. Tarek. En réalité, le mot fort qui est revenu sur toutes les lèvres, c'est la coopération. Mais en réalité, je voulais expliquer un peu ce que nous entendons pour nous en parlant de port du futur, la coopération, parce que c'est l'essence même de la création de notre association. Donc, on ne coopère pas forcément avec les autorités portuaires, on ne coopère pas forcément avec des associations sœurs comme la MED Port Association, mais de plus en plus pour lever les freins et faire en sorte qu'il y ait lever pratiquement les crises liées donc à la peur du futur, à la peur donc du changement. Il faut coopérer donc avec les apporteurs de solutions. Et les apporteurs de solutions sont encore ici. Et c'est ceux-là qui doivent donner donc la formation et accompagner donc les autorités portuaires avec donc la gestion donc des communautés portuaires qui existent pratiquement dans tous nos ports. Et pourtant, nous traînons, nous n'arrivons pas tout simplement à établir ou à mettre en place donc les guichets uniques. C'est aussi un des freins. Et donc en coopérant donc ces apporteurs de solutions, pas du côté finance, mais du côté prise de conscience de ce que nous avons le même objectif, c'est vers là que nous devons partir. Oui, je pense que nous pouvons atteindre donc cet objectif. C'est cet élément que je voulais compléter dans le cadre donc de la coopération. Et donc nous invitons les apporteurs de solutions ici à faire en sorte que leur vision de développement donc, de la facilitation du trafic coïncide avec la vision des autorités portuaires de telle manière à ce que nous puissions sortir tout simplement de le retard que nous accusons s'agissant pratiquement des ports de l'Afrique de l'Ouest et du Centre, parce que c'était quand même assez important de le dire. Je disais qu'il y avait des freins, il y avait des freins financiers, il y avait des freins en termes de capacité, de renforcement des capacités, mais aussi et surtout cet élément essentiel sur lequel donc, je voulais insister. Et donc nous vous invitons au sein donc, de l'Association de gestion des ports d'Afrique de l'Ouest de faire en sorte que nous nous rencontrons, que nous discutons et que nous puissions donc résoudre donc, ce problème de la digitalisation. Parce que chaque fois que nous marquons un pas, nous allons un peu plus devant. Et donc il faut pouvoir arrêter donc, les standards, arrêter donc quelque part. Nous étions à la digitalisation, d'abord à la numérisation, la digitalisation. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes au smart port. Et puis les autres, on connaît. Ça arrive, il faut qu'on arrive quelque part à s'arrêter. Merci.
Merci beaucoup Jean-Marie, Monsieur Coffi, pour cet éclairage. Effectivement, nous avons vraiment, c'est un appel à tous les experts en solutions, en technologie, qui peuvent apporter des très bonnes idées et des très bonnes orientations pour les ports d'Afrique. Et je pense que effectivement, votre appel est bien entendu, Monsieur Coffi. D'autres interventions pour une dernière intervention pour quelqu'un?
Oui.
Oui, oui, oui.
Je voulais juste rebondir dans le même sens que mon ami Jean-Marie par rapport à la coopération, qui est un élément important, surtout dans nos pays africains, donc aussi bien régional, sous-régional, parce que le Sénégal est membre de la GOPAOC, où au mois de juillet dernier, une conférence est tenue à Dakar sur les guichets uniques, sur les ports community system, où vraiment il y a des résolutions fortes. Donc le Sénégal a une avancée dans ce sens également. Pourquoi? Parce que la digitalisation du pré-dédouanement est opérationnelle. Le dédouanement opérationnel, il reste que la phase post-acheminement qui va boucler donc le processus. Donc quand même il y a quelques défis à noter, donc vraiment pour arriver à ça, et c'est valable pour tous les pays enclavés, mais également pour tous les pays qui ont des guichets uniques, qui doivent coopérer avec les autres pays qui n'en ont pas, c'est l'harmonisation des législations internationales au niveau de l'OMI et de l'OMC. Ça, vraiment, c'est un défi important. L'élimination des tracasseries le long des corridors terrestres, ça aussi, je pense que le guichet unique est une solution. L'interconnexion des infrastructures logistiques majeures, ça, vraiment, ce sont des défis qu'il faut essayer de relever, tout en s'ouvrir au niveau international avec la GPAOC au niveau de l'Afrique subsaharienne, mais également avec nos amis de Medport qui peuvent nous apporter les bonnes pratiques et nous permettre d'atteindre ces objectifs-là. Voilà, merci.
Merci beaucoup. Effectivement, vous avez dit des choses très importantes et vous avez parlé de l'OMI, l'Organisation maritime internationale, qui a émis des réglementations récentes concernant les single window maritimes et qui va se devenir obligatoire dans quelques mois. Et donc, bien sûr, il va falloir se préparer pour pouvoir adopter cette single window maritime, ce qui est un premier pas important. Et vous avez parlé aussi de l'OMC qui définit les normes du commerce international. Et là aussi, il faut essayer de s'approcher de ces recommandations sur les normes et standards relatifs au trade, international trade. Donc voilà, en tout cas, il y a des personnes qui peuvent nous aider et M. Khan nous a vraiment beaucoup aidé. Je vous remercie d'ailleurs pour votre éclairage parce que l'expérience de ces personnes qui ont été confrontées à des projets de digitalisation au niveau international peuvent nous apporter beaucoup, je pense, dans la définition d'une stratégie commune. Et ça, c'est un appel que je fais moi aussi, c'est qu'il faut qu'on avance ensemble, les pays de la zone Afrique, pour aller plus facilement. Et pas qu'on fasse appel chacun dans son coin à des solutions spécifiques qui ensuite nous rendent plus fragiles ou qui ne nous permettent pas d'aboutir à un résultat intéressant. Nos entreprises, elles sont confrontées à du commerce de bout en bout. Donc ce qui les intéresse, c'est avoir un service jusqu'au pays de destination. Et donc du coup, ils ont intérêt à ce que les solutions soient intégrées, ce qui n'est pas encore le cas aujourd'hui. Et j'espère qu'on va trouver des chemins pour les construire avec toutes ces compétences, savoir-faire. Voilà. D'autres, Philippe?
Allez, après je me tais, promis. Juste, on a beaucoup parlé de coopération, de mise en réseau et de l'importance que ça pouvait avoir. Et j'en profite ici, mais pas du tout de façon triste, mais je voulais saluer la mémoire de Richard Morton, qui nous a quittés il y a quelques jours et qui a été un invité régulier à la conférence Portnet et qui nous a montré par son activité, par son enthousiasme, comment justement cette coopération pouvait avoir des enseignements, enfin des résultats très riches. Donc on peut le saluer là et puis en profiter puisque c'est vraiment l'occasion et dire que effectivement insister encore sur le fait que plus on coopère, plus chacun gagnera individuellement de façon certaine, que ça soit au niveau local, régional, international. Il n'y a pas d'autre solution, je pense, pour arriver à de bons résultats. Voilà, juste en phase de conclusion. Merci Tariq.
Merci beaucoup Philippe pour ce mot et effectivement Richard, c'était vraiment quelqu'un d'exceptionnel. On salue son travail, son effort, ses actions et puis c'était quelqu'un de très très sympathique, on le regrettera beaucoup. Je vous propose de clôturer ce panel. Je remercie beaucoup nos éminents panélistes pour le dialogue qu'on a eu
Et merci Tariq pour ta modération.
Merci. Et puis, je vous propose de se retrouver de toute façon pour des discussions, on va dire, en aparté. Je remercie l'audience pour son écoute, sa disponibilité. C'était un plaisir d'assurer la modération. Et je vous donne rendez-vous dans quelques minutes pour les recommandations de la conférence internationale des guichets uniques. Merci beaucoup et à tout à l'heure.
Yeah, sorry that I am intervening. Before we conclude, I didn't have opportunity to say thanks to the organizers that we were invited here, and we had a 3-day session which we really enjoyed. Not only for the purpose of that we were looked after very well here, but for the purpose of that the quality of the sessions and the topics which were discussed were phenomenal, and all credit goes to the organizers that we had experienced such a good event here, and we hope that we will continue to do this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khan. It's a pleasure to have you. It's the time for the photo, the little photograph.
Un peu de ménage. Mesdames et messieurs, nous parvenons à la séance de lecture des recommandations et cérémonie de clôture de la 8e édition de la conférence et exposition internationale sur les guichets uniques. Je voudrais inviter à mes côtés sous vos applaudissements Madame la Présidente. Merci de me rejoindre. Monsieur Tarek, Monsieur le directeur général de Portnet, merci de me rejoindre. Aïssa, Youssef Fahouzi, et Madame Nogaï Diop, chargée du programme à l'Alliance africaine pour le commerce électronique. David Gama aussi, s'il vous plaît. David, il va nous rejoindre. Je pense que Tariq, au niveau de la régie, vous nous suivez, donc on peut commencer. À travers les différentes interventions et points de vue, nous avons, mesdames et messieurs, pu constater que le guichet unique est un paradigme de gouvernance qui suscite une évolution permanente des structures, et ce, vers de nouvelles transformations répondant davantage aux besoins des entreprises et des communautés économiques. des besoins sans cesse évolutifs et par conséquent générateur de multiples défis à relever pour les organisations et les États. Les différentes interventions évoquent tant des expériences, des expertises, des solutions que de perspectives en englobant différents aspects, la vision ou la stratégie, la technologie, l'interopérabilité, le parcours client, l'esprit collaboratif et l'intelligence collective, la cohérence ou la transparence, l'intelligence artificielle, les facteurs qui sont inhérents aussi à la résistance au changement, à la formation, au capital humain, aux conduites de changement qui font et qui replacent l'humain comme élément déterminant dans le succès des guichets uniques. À vrai dire, mesdames et messieurs, tous ces aspects ont enrichi les rencontres de cette 8e édition de la conférence internationale sur les guichets uniques en lui donnant, et j'insiste là-dessus, un caractère exceptionnel ainsi qu'un constat de succès à tous les niveaux. Mesdames et messieurs, pour la lecture des recommandations issues de ces journées riches et intenses de travail, j'ai le plaisir et l'honneur de convier à mes côtés Madame Nogaï Diop, chargée de programme à l'Alliance africaine pour le commerce électronique, sous vos applaudissements.
Mesdames et messieurs, bonjour. Merci beaucoup, monsieur le modérateur. Alors, vous devez avoir à l'écran les recommandations clés de cette 8e édition de la conférence internationale sur les guichets uniques. Après 3 jours d'intenses travaux, nous avons pu récapituler, faire un résumé de l'ensemble des recommandations qui ont été émises. Et je rappelle qu'il y aura un livre blanc, un rapport qui intégrera l'ensemble des recommandations faites au cours de toutes les sessions qui ont eu lieu. Alors, comme première recommandation, nous avons le renforcement des capacités des parties prenantes pour accélérer la mise en œuvre des guichets uniques nationaux. Deuxième recommandation, promouvoir l'échange de données et la transparence des acteurs nationaux pour la réussite d'un guichet unique. Recommandation 3, il s'agira de renforcer les technologies existantes pour assurer la cybersécurité des données. Recommandation 4, se conformer aux standards internationaux pour la protection des données. Et la recommandation suivante, la recommandation 5, il s'agira de renforcer le rôle des guichets uniques dans l'accompagnement de la mise en œuvre des grandes réformes internationales en rapport avec la facilitation des échanges, tels que la zone de libre-échange continentale, les accords de facilitation de l'OMC et également les standards de l'OMI. Recommandation 5, il s'agira de renforcer les initiatives d'interopérabilité de l'Alliance à travers la plateforme AFTRA. Comme recommandation également, nous avons une qui consiste à encourager les pays à engager des révisions du cadre réglementaire pour une meilleure intégration du digital dans la chaîne logistique. Recommandation 8, il s'agira également de renforcer l'engagement politique au niveau des communautés économiques régionales et l'Union africaine. Recommandation 9, il s'agit d'encourager la mise en place des guichets uniques régionaux. Recommandation 10, il s'agit d'encourager toutes les parties prenantes du commerce extérieur à intégrer les plateformes de guichets uniques. Recommandation 11, encourager les guichets uniques à intégrer les technologies émergentes, les blockchains, les big data et les IoT. Recommandation 12, il s'agira d'encourager le partenariat et le partage de bonnes pratiques liées à la modernisation du commerce transfrontalier. Comme recommandation 13, il s'agira d'inviter les gouvernements africains à adhérer à l'Alliance pour une mutualisation des efforts. Et enfin, comme dernière recommandation, encourager les pays à façade maritime à intégrer dans leur guichet unique des processus visant à faciliter le transit de marchandises vers les pays de l'Interland. Je vous remercie.
Merci Nogai de cet aspect très solennel avec lequel et le cœur que vous avez mis pour la lecture de ces recommandations. Mesdames et messieurs, avant de donner la parole à monsieur le vice-président de la CCE et à monsieur Youssef Fahouzi, à madame la présidente, je voudrais, avec beaucoup de reconnaissance et d'émotion, remercier les organisateurs, les partenaires et les exposants pour cette magnifique rencontre, les panélistes, les intervenants pour la pertinence de leurs propos et de leurs avis, toutes celles et ceux qui, de près ou de loin, ont contribué à faire de cette 8e édition un véritable succès. La parole, sous vos applaudissements, mesdames et messieurs, à monsieur le vice-président de la AACE.
Thank you so much. The president of the African Alliance for Electronic Commerce, who is just ending his term, and I'll be stepping in, or I'll be coming in as the next president of the African Alliance for Electronic Commerce, starting Monday, or starting the 1st of October. So on behalf of, thank you. So on behalf of the entire AAEC membership, all the members of the African Alliance, and indeed on my own behalf and on behalf of the outgoing chairman, I want to take this opportunity to most sincerely thank Portnet, ANP, and indeed the government or the Kingdom of Morocco and the people of Morocco for hosting us for this 8th edition of the Single Window Conference. A very beautiful event, well organized, a beautiful venue, and we are sincerely grateful that we are able to put together such a beautiful event. You are able to bring together a lot of good speakers who have enlightened us on a number of things. So we are most grateful for this event and for hosting us, and for all the speakers who created the time and who spent time, doing the research that they did to be able to bring forth such critical information that is useful in terms of growing our region and in fact the African continent and making a contribution to trade facilitation. I want to take this opportunity to most sincerely thank you. I always say that the systems that we do implement are not essentially ICT system, but our business here is to facilitate trade. Even where we come from as a country, we always say it's not about the ICT system itself. It's about the impact that you make in the trading environment. And for all of us, I believe that our main concern and our interest is to make a difference in the trade environment. So I want to congratulate you and to commend you for the good work that you are doing and encourage you to carry on. There's a lot that we need to do. There are a lot of good experiences that were shared here. I've seen the 15 recommendations that have come through this conference, and I want to assure you that we'll take up what we need to take up as AAEC to ensure that these recommendations are implemented. As I did indicate during my session, we have just approved or launched our strategic plan for the African Alliance for the next 2 years. And so one of the big things, or some of the big things that we want to look at, for example, is how do we ensure that more countries implement the single window, especially in the African region. We've noted that right now we are about 18 members. We have about 10 members who are already implementing the single window system, and we hope by the end of this year or the end of next year, we'll have more members joining the African Alliance. In fact, for me, what I'm looking at is probably an opportunity to have a single window conference in a country that has yet or is yet to implement the single window, so that we can share this good information and these good ideas that we have, so that we can entice them to be able to take up this good concept. So again, in terms of going forward, we are looking at, again, partnering with a number of organizations. You witnessed the signing that we did here with PAA. We also signed a MOU with PKI Consortium, again an endeavor to ensure that we reach out to like-minded organizations so that we drive this agenda of facilitating trade not only in Africa, but the entire continent. So again, thank you so much for spending time with us. We are looking forward to doing the next single window conference. We have two offers. We might do it either in Djibouti, or we might do it in DR Congo. So we will let you know
where we will have the next single window conference, and I believe that you'll have an opportunity to join us and be able to share much more of what we are doing. So again, thank you so much. We are humbled by your attendance, by your presence and your participation, and as you travel, journey mercies, and God bless you all. And again, thank you, Portnet, thank you, ANP, thank you, MC. I mean, well delivered, and God bless you all. Thank you so much.
Merci, Monsieur le Vice-président. Merci beaucoup. Beaucoup d'émotions dans vos propos et merci de votre implication le long de ces 3 journées de conférence. La parole à Youssef Ahouzi, directeur général de Portnet SA, sous vos applaudissements, mesdames et messieurs. Youssef, je sais que vous n'avez pas beaucoup dormi ces derniers jours et il vous reste un peu d'énergie pour le mot de la fin et de la clôture.
Je vais essayer de clôturer. Merci beaucoup, cher Mounir, pour la modération. Je veux remercier également nos speakers, nos panélistes, les modérateurs, M. Dominique également, pour la modération, pour Setaer Mahouni également pour la modération de ce matin. On remercie les experts qui sont venus en fait de très loin pour exposer en fait leur expertise, leur réflexion par rapport à différents sujets en fait, notamment les guichets uniques, l'interopérabilité, l'intégration régionale, les smart ports, la logistique portuaire, beaucoup de sujets vraiment très intéressants et très importants, surtout pour le continent africain. Je remercie M. le Président de l'Alliance africaine pour le commerce électronique, M. Amos Ongwa, que malheureusement il va quitter un peu l'Alliance, mais il va rester toujours un ami en fait, de l'Alliance africaine. Donc on lui souhaite bonne continuation dans sa vie professionnelle. Et on va continuer à travailler avec l'Alliance, avec tous les membres, avec nos amis de l'Alliance pour en fait, mettre en place ces recommandations que je pense vraiment très importantes. Donc voilà, donc cette édition va se clôturer, mais je pense que les recommandations qui ont été élaborées vont nous permettre en fait de faire un suivi, en les mettant en œuvre, en mettant tous nos efforts, les synergies entre nous, va nous permettre en fait d'améliorer la façon avec laquelle nous faisons du commerce entre nos pays et à l'international également. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Youssef. Merci de ces mots et on a gardé le meilleur pour la fin. Madame la Présidente, sous vos applaudissements, je sais que ça va être un discours du cœur, beaucoup de passion.
Bonjour à tous et à toutes. C'est pour moi un réel plaisir d'avoir commencé et de clôturer en définitive ces 3 jours riches en débats, riches en thématiques, riches en relations humaines, riche en présence de différents experts de divers horizons. Je pense qu'au bout de ces 3 jours, il y a eu beaucoup d'émotions tout au long. Nous avons essayé de partager aussi avec vous les nôtres. J'espère qu'elles étaient à la hauteur de vos aspirations. Nous avons, je pense, pour moi, 14 recommandations. C'est beaucoup, mais j'espère. Parce que, bon, c'est vrai qu'on sort avec beaucoup de recommandations, mais le problème, c'est pas de faire des recommandations. Je pense que le problème, c'est de réellement les décliner. Chaque recommandation doit être déclinée en feuille de route pour nous permettre réellement d'avancer. Parce que si c'est reste lettre morte, on aura l'impression de ne pas avoir terminé notre travail, et c'est dommage parce que nous y avons mis et notre expertise, et nos expériences, et bien sûr notre cœur. Je vous invite vraiment à chacun en ce qui le concerne, chacun dans son domaine, de prendre en considération de ces commentaires et de revenir vers nous avec des propositions de feuilles de route. Je pense que c'est comme ça qu'on arrivera à réellement créer cette véritable synergie entre nos différents guichets et cette interopérabilité qui est indispensable pour qu'on puisse faire un commerce en intra correctement. Et avec le zéro papier, j'espère, nous on espérait zéro papier 2020, la crise était venue, mais ça est devenu difficile. J'espère qu'à échéance 2025, au plus tard, nous arriverons à avoir le véritable zéro papier auquel nous aspirons. Encore une fois, merci pour votre présence. Je ne peux pas clore mon mot sans dire un grand merci à Mounir. Je pense qu'il a été présent sur plusieurs panel. Il a donné aussi beaucoup de son temps, beaucoup de son cœur. Hein. Je pense que, comme il me le disait à l'instant, il devient membre de cette famille des guichets uniques. il est tombé dedans quand même. Il adore, je pense. Hein. Tu finis par adorer. Je dirais aussi merci à tous ceux qui ont accompagné ces panels. Je ne peux pas les citer tous. Et je vous donne rendez-vous à une prochaine fois. Et je déclare close la 8e édition des guichets uniques.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Merci Mesdames et Messieurs de vos applaudissements et de votre présence. Et à la prochaine fois. Portez-vous bien. Excellente fin de matinée.